Wednesday, December 20th, 2016 is called to order. Mr. Finnan, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, can you have a roll call?
We need to swear in the new council member first. You can't call roll until he's sworn in, so that you have him recording for you.
Okay, that works. We'll do swearing in of Councilman Adams first. Come out front. All right.
So Craig, the stuff I did might be wrong now because it says mayor on it.
What's that?
The thing I gave you says mayor. No,
Chris already had a copy.
He's pretty quick on his feet.
okay. All right.
Please raise your right hand. I, Christopher P. Adams,
I, Christopher P. Adams,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of Borough Council member
of Borough Council member
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Thank you.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Nace and Mr. Adams. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Crothermel,
Here.
Mr. Epley,
Present.
Mr. Adams,
Present.
Mr. Nace,
Present.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Kirkhoff,
Here.
Ms. Young,
Present.
Acting Mayor Nace,
Here as well.
Solicitor Dissinger,
I am here.
Engineer Aycock.
Here.
Thank you. As a reminder to everybody, please silence any electronic devices, pagers, cell phones, whatever you have with you. We also have a special presentation of a plaque for Mayor Conrad, and I'm here to accept it on his behalf as his wife. Thank you.
I'm ironically the acting mayor tonight in Jack's absence. This is Jack's beautiful wife, Ginny. She's here on Jack's behalf due to his health concerns. He's unable to be here. We've got a very, very nice plaque, and you'll need both hands because it's very heavy. Presented to Mayor Jack Conrad, mayor from 2014 to 2016, and prior to that, a member of Borough Council from 2004 to 2013. In honor of and appreciation for his many years of dedication and service to the Borough of Duncannon and its citizens, presented December 20, 2016 by the Duncannon Borough Council. We wish you both the very best, and our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Thank you, that's very kind. Oh, thank you.
Within the
Oh. You know Jack can't. So, it is with a heavy heart that I must say goodbye to all my friends. But Could you please do this?
Mayor's report, December 2016. It is with a heavy heart that I must say goodbye to all my friends, but circumstances related to my health give me no choice, as I must concentrate fully on my struggle against the horrible disease ALS. It has been my honor and pleasure to serve you all the last 15 years. I hope my efforts leave Duncannon with a bright future, and my heart will always be with you. There's no doubt about that. I know that the current Borough Council and staff are the best there have ever been, and that they will serve the community well. Please remember that we are all in this together, and unless we work together, we cannot truly succeed. Sincerely, your friend and neighbor, Mayor Jack Conrad. Please do all that you please do all that you can to fight ALS. We wish Jack the absolute best, and as a community, there's been a lot of spirited discussion at this table through the years, and Jack's been on both sides of many of those.
Yes.
But a revolving comment that I've heard from a lot of different people is his heart's always been in this town and for this town. So there's a lot to be said for that.
And it's got to be the shortest speech that man ever wrote.
It wasn't the ones he wrote we were concerned about. It's when he just. I'd like to add that to the record.
If I may just say a few words as a
Thank you.
private citizen before I leave. I just want to tell you all that what you do here is tremendous because you have an extremely, extremely hard job, and you get little to no thanks for it. You put out, your time and effort, and it's all from the bottom of your heart. And whether you agree or disagree with one another, it doesn't matter because it's still coming from the heart with the best of intentions. And I just want to tell you, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do. And we're leaving this town not because we want to, but because circumstances have made it that way. And we'll always remember everyone, especially at Halloween. So, so appreciate it all. You all do such good work, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I didn't see you right away. It's so nice to see you again. How are you? Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Conrad, have a Merry Christmas.
Oh, you too. Merry Christmas.
So we have the presentation of the council meeting minutes from November 15th, and the vacancy board minutes from November 20th. Does anybody have any comments?
On the November 15th minutes on page 7, next to the last paragraph starting with Annette Mullen, Ms. Mullen inquired into the planned power outage. We would have got the word asked after Ms. Mullen. That's the only thing I have.
Anybody else? Hearing no corrections, we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Is this both?
I'm sorry. Was that for the 15th and the 22nd? As you know?
I don't know that, if there's no corrections to the 22nd. I didn't have any corrections to the 22nd, so I'm okay with the motion being for both.
I'm okay with my second being for both. All in favor, give your consent by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have public comment, 3 minutes per speaker. Somebody grab a clipboard, please. Those who signed in, only Genevieve Conrad wished to speak. She already did. I believe she's left. There are question marks next to Mr. Finnan. Do you wish to speak at this time?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Ox?
Not this time, thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Not yet, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak for public comment at this time? Alrighty, hearing none, we will move on to, go down there. Appointments, resignations, correspondence, proposals, and citizen action forms. I think you all have in front of you a letter from Mr. Capuana with interest in taking the open position of mayor. I don't think we got any other correspondence of that nature.
No, there was no others.
I make a motion to appoint John Capuana to the office of mayor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to appoint John Capuana, mayor of Duncannon. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Capuana. Can we move forward with swearing him in tonight? Is that all in line? All right. I will go ahead and have Acting Mayor Nace go ahead and swear you in so that we can proceed with the meeting then. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Nace.
Just make sure I spell
If you
last
still
name.
want it.
I think DJ's idea was getting in now before you
Yeah, before you can get out of here.
Reach the point of no return rather quickly.
For the record, we do have his notarized affidavit of residency for the office records. And John, if you could raise your right hand. I, G. John Capuana,
I, G. John Capuano,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of Duncannon Borough Mayor
of Duncannon Borough Mayor
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's not 4 years more of service, right?
Thank you, Mr. Castellano.
Security. Wait.
Oh,
There are both oaths of office.
All right, thanks.
I'm just fire drill.
I didn't do it because I was doing it all at once.
Kathy is diligently working on the charge for Mr. Adams and Mr. Adams.
You got some job ready. Pass these down, Mr. Castellano.
Is there anything else under agenda item number 8, which is appointments, resignations, correspondence, proposals, and citizen action forms? There were 2 pieces of correspondence, actually 4 pieces of correspondence received, that I received. 2 are from Department of Environmental Protection that Chris will cover a little bit later in the meeting. I did receive a letter from the Penn Township Board of Supervisors dated December 2nd, 2016. Dear council members, at its meeting on November 30th, 2016, the Board of Supervisors approved a motion to accept the payment of $25,000 for the month of October and November 2016 police contract. Sincerely, Helen Klein Peter. There's also a letter dated the 29th of November. Both were received the same day, December 5th. Copied to us, addressed to Richard Foltz, Director, EMS 911, Perry County Communications. Mr. Foltz, the Penn Township was recently notified by the Borough of Duncannon that they wish to end their contract for police services as of the 30th of November 2016. As a result, this letter is to notify that as of 2400 hours on 30th November 16, the Penn Township Police Department will have no jurisdiction within the Borough of Duncannon and therefore will not be responding to calls for service for any location within the Borough of Duncannon. Any and all calls for service should be forwarded and handled by the Newport Barracks of Pennsylvania State Police. It is my understanding that any mutual aid agreements in effect will not be affected and remain in place. If I am made aware of any changes to the same, I will notify you as soon as possible. If you should have any questions with reference to this matter, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you, Joseph Landis. Joseph Landis, as Department Administrator in Township. Did you have the originals of those, Chris, for the record?
I do not know.
Pass these along. I don't know if they're the originals or not. Okay. Move on then to number 9, general reports, starting with the Borough Engineer, Vicki Aycock. For anyone that is not aware, I did have a meeting about 2 weeks ago with Greg Rogowski and Ron Brown. Ron is enjoying retirement and going to enter into some more retirement and is stepping back from the borough as our lead engineer. Those duties will then be split by Ms. Aycock and Mr. Rogowski. Mr. Rogowski does have a conflicting meeting for the first part of this night every month, but he expects to join us later on. So, Vicki.
Correct. You all have Greg's report in front of you. I'm here to answer any questions. I have nothing to add to his report. If there were any questions, I would be more than willing to.
Are there any comments or questions from Ms. Aycock? You'll notice under Borough Projects, the first item is reservoir leak. The last sentence, Benoni is awaiting Borough Council authorization to bid the project. Is there any wish for action on that?
I thought we'd already done that, but I'll make a motion that we bid the project for the reservoir leak.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Crotharmel, a second by Ms. Young, to authorize Benoni to receive bids on the replacement of the reservoir line, or to install a reservoir line. Any further discussion?
I'm really confused because I thought he brought bids in. Or
We
maybe
had-
it wasn't official
No.
bids, he was
No,
just
we
getting
had
quotes.
We have
Opinion of
different
cost.
options on
Okay,
on the
okay,
line.
okay,
And we would recommend you go out for bid to get the prices in.
right.
Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other action that you're expecting or in need of from us?
No.
Anything else for the engineer? Move on to the Public Works Operator, Todd Mays from Pesic.
You all have our report as well. Any questions or comments? Anything I see on there is the effluent valve actuator is there on site, hasn't been installed, so it's kind of sitting there waiting under wastewater.
Any questions or information for the operator of the Public Works system? Anything else from you, Todd?
Thank you.
Thank you. We've been on to the Borough Solicitor, Mr. Dissinger.
I have a matter that I wish to discuss in executive session for threatened potential litigation. You may wish to put that off to the end of the meeting or have it now. It's up to you.
Do you feel it makes sense to do it at the end of the meeting, doesn't affect any other business we have?
Correct. Your meeting's moving along so well. I don't want to-
There's no, we hold off until the executive session at the end of the meeting.
I don't think you should have
Do we want to do that before unfinished business?
Sounds good.
I'll make a note so I don't forget. Anything else, Mr. Dissinger?
No, sir.
Anything for Mr. Dissinger? Very good. Move on then to Fire Protection, Chief Warner.
Just a couple of the years winding down, just some highlights of the things that we did over the past year that we pretty much do every year. I really haven't reported on these type of things outside of when we're in our committee meetings, just talking back and forth. We do, every year, the apparatus when it gets a state inspection, it gets a chassis maintenance done by an outside vendor. And every other year, the pumps are tested. There's not really the use of them tremendous amount to warrant getting them done every year, so we like to keep them done every other year. And the aerial test is done annually on the tower truck because of its age. And actually, it did fail the test this time, but it's just a small gremlin that we've been chasing with the controls in the bucket that are hiccuping every now and then. Something we'll be addressing here in the very near future. And with the every other year thing, one year we have all of our rescue tools maintenanced by Fire Rescue Products. They're the Amicus dealer, that's the brand of the tools. And then the opposite year of that, we have all our breathing apparatus flow tested and inspected and everything by the Fire Store, which is the MSA, which is our breathing apparatus manufacturer dealer. And we do in-house, we do hose testing annually. We test all the fire hoses. That probably saves the fire company in excess of $6,000–7,000 if we would just outsource that and have it done. The next committee meeting potential date is the last Tuesday in February. I don't have the date, I didn't write it down in front of me. What would that be?
Last Tuesday?
Yep.
The 28th.
Yep, 7 o'clock at the in-town station. And then the only other thing I have to add is stress the importance of the funding increase that we requested to go along with what we've been discussing in the committee for the past 2 years. That will help keep the apparatus replacement program in place. Like I said, can't stress enough that the aerial tower truck is a 1973. We have a reputable manufacturer that builds an aerial device that we're pretty much interested in. We won't do any alterations to the firehouse. It's the same capacity with the 75-foot, and we have the pumper at the township station is 21 years old, and we want to replace that one also. This increase would potentially be good for the next 17 years, if we lock that figure in, the next 2 years will be used to pay off the rescue pumper that was purchased in 2012, and that payment will pretty much be the same for the 15-year loan of both the apparatus we're wishing to replace. So that request for funding for apparatus could potentially be the same for at least the next 17, not have to increase for the next 17 years. So that's why I'm kind of stressing the importance of it, because we can't do anything until we pay that rescue pumper off. We won't be able to intermingle another loan in or anything like that, because that rig has a 10-year financing figure to it. And we're trying to pay it off in about 6. The payment next year would pay off the annual loan that we make, and 2018's payment would be the PEMA 2% loan on it. And then anybody that's not familiar with purchasing fire apparatus, you just don't go to the fire truck store and buy one. It's a specification process. Once we order the apparatus, it's going to take approximately a year for it to be delivered by the manufacturer, and then it's going to take some time for equipment mounting and things like that. So if we receive the funding and we're able to move forward with this, the apparatus will probably be ordered sometime September, October of 2017, which delivery would take place approximately a year later. And so that you're looking at 2 more years on the current apparatus right now that we're trying to replace, and then moving forward from that, if it's delayed, that just moves back and just keeps moving on. So I discussed a couple different scenarios with how to achieve that funding. Don't know if anything's doable or not, but I just can't stress the importance of it enough. Thanks for your time.
Anyone at the table have anything for the fire chief?
Yes. How far is our advertised budget from achieving? Because I think there was some lack of clarity at the table last month on what the exact amount of your request was, or of your requested increase was.
The requested increase was 10,000.
Okay.
I didn't get to see, the only thing that I recall, it was 28. Is that what it was? Or no, it was bumped up to 26, 25.
I think we were at 26 or somewhere right about there. Chris, what was that budget?
I'm looking for that number.
I think it was 25.
So you would need to be around 33
Yes.
to have the full request.
And that's what we discussed that in the budget meeting, the finance meeting. We kind of come up with some scenarios on how that was achievable. And then I thought of another scenario that would help maybe accomplish some of that money if it's doable. The last increase that we've gotten, and I don't know what year it took place, was to basically cover, when the accounting system changed in the borough, the borough had been giving us our utilities for free in town station. The accounting procedures changed, and they wanted us to pay the utility bills, but they raised the donation basically to cover the utility bills. So and that was the last increase we'd received, and I don't even know what year that was. It had to be six years ago or so. But that's why I asked the question if there was any way, shape, or form that the utilities could be written off as a donation or somehow as a contribution, fire company contribution, that would, then you wouldn't have to raise the donation amount as much, probably half, because our utilities are essentially around $5,000 to $6,000 annually. So if you would raise the donation amount to $28,000 and relieve us of paying the utilities, that would put another $5,000 that you already give us that we wouldn't have to pay out. So it would essentially increase it that amount.
The mentality, my understanding of the mentality of the change there was to encourage the fire department to conserve, to try and cut back on the electric and the water consumption. Being that they're different funds, I think that keeping that separate, because generally the fire department's a general fund item, may be cleaner. I failed to introduce him at the beginning. This is Bob Probat. He's our finance director and treasurer that we appointed last month. I don't know if he has anything to add to this or not, but he's working diligently on getting the finances in order and understandable. And I think that we can certainly discuss a lot of things.
And that was that was just a brainstorm on my, because it really wouldn't make money change hands. Because I mean, essentially, no money would be coming out of the utilities budget, but it would be earmarked that way on your utility budget itself. You know, if you get what I'm.
Well, we're still paying for the electric. We're still paying
Right.
the bulk purchase of the electric.
Yes.
And with the sewer being a split, you know, that ends up being kind of messy too. So.
And you know, like I said, that was just a suggestion on my part that would essentially alleviate money coming out, especially from the general fund, which is where you're crunching. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, our general fund budget has 33,000.
No, he's going to get the corrected one. That was an old version.
Yeah.
That still has a police contract in it.
Yeah, I wanna say that the actual advertised budget was 20-something.
I think it was 25.
Yeah, I think you're right, Christie, but, and I just did some, playing around with figures on, and we talked about the fire tax, and I think you set that for an amount to achieve 25,000, it's not exactly 25, it's higher with the margin of error in it, but, with that, I think the amount to achieve what we wanted to was 0.65. And I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head what was put in to achieve 25.
I believe it was 0.48.
0.48, yeah.
Something like that. So you're essentially looking at 0.17 of a mil to achieve that straight up. And that's 0.15, I just did some figures at home, is approximately $9 a year for the average taxpayer in the borough. So you know, just to put some perspective on it, but.
Can you provide either the Public Safety Committee or this body, the two trucks that you and I have discussed the potential for consolidating those two vehicles into one, similar to what Shermansdale has, instead of having two vehicles, two loan payments, two sets of insurance, two fuel, you know, equipment maintenance, so on and so forth. Could you provide us with overall use of those vehicles over the last year or 5 years?
And
borough's specific use of those vehicles?
That'll be in the annual report.
Okay.
Borough specific is probably gonna be not.
I would think the tower
We'll probably
trucks.
look by, the type of call, we know kind of what went on it. The firehouse software doesn't have, I was just going through there the other night and trying to break some things down in different areas, and there's not a lot of, to break it down like that, there's no summary that you can put in for that. You'd have to manually go through a lot of the calls. But I mean, obviously I could print out and I could try and find, I think there is a units by zone. So we may be able to do that.
With,
yeah,
with the 201 box, you would
Yep.
be very close.
Yeah, I can certainly try and get whatever. And also, the other thing that you may want to reference is the fire study that was done in 2003. That's 13 years old already, and that's something you may want to brush up on. I was just skimming through it today, and a lot of the upgrades that we've done in the fire company over the past 10 years or so, maybe longer, have been done that correspond with that fire study. Now, it's not, you know, not word for word or anything, but the fire station that was put out on the Bloomfield Road, that's a recommendation in the fire study. And obviously it wasn't done specifically for that reason, but replacing some of the equipment, upgrading some equipment, doing this, you know, certain things. I was actually refreshed today when I read some of it that, you know, that we've been corresponding with that fire study pretty well with the equipment. So
I don't know if we have a copy here in the office. I know that was.
You did the, I gave it to you.
I have a digital
And
copy.
you did the electronic copy.
Right.
You should have one here, because the borough paid for part of that
There
study.
probably is one here somewhere, or was one here somewhere, but I don't know that it's, that anyone knows where it would.
And I don't know, I actually thought of this today, and especially with what's going on in Penn Township. I don't know if it might be wise for the borough and the township to contact the gentleman that did that study, and it's 13 years ago or 14 years ago, and see if there's if he could do an update on it, not necessarily a full-fledged do-over, but if there's any type of update he can add to that to basically bring it up to the current time. I mean, I don't know.
The borough and the township paid for that stuff, correct?
Yeah, it's kind of, I think it was a percent, it wasn't a 50-50, I think it was a percentage type of thing, but, yeah, it was, the study's dated 2003, so I'm sure it was done in 2002 or earlier. And the gentleman's name's on, I actually have it in the, outside.
I don't know, I know DCED does studies, police regionalization studies at no charge. We actually had one of those done in 2009, I believe. But that may be, they may offer something too that wouldn't be a cost, at least for some information, some data collection.
Do me a favor, would you please send me an email of what information you want, and I'll try and gather as much as I can.
To your personal address or the fire company address?
Fire company's is fine.
Anyone else have anything for the fire chief? Thank you, Byron. Move on then to the mayor.
Nothing in the last 20 minutes.
Are you sure?
So go outside.
Yeah.
Under the mayor's report, we do have the code enforcement report from Anthony Place. That should be enclosed in your packet this evening.
And I put an update on the table, too.
Oh,
It has my name at the top, but it's from Anthony.
oh. 630 High Street, they paid.
It was exciting.
Outstanding. It looks like you were excited. Very good.
Yeah, when Tony uses exclamation points.
Are there any questions or comments, concerns on the code enforcement report? Okay. Thank you, Mayor Capuano. Anything for the mayor? We'll move on then to the secretary. Anything from the secretary's office?
No.
Okay. Anything for the secretary? Welcome back, Chris. You're next. The borough meeting.
Before I get into my report, I just want to, a couple comments. First of all, Merry Christmas, and if you celebrate other holidays, happy holidays to everybody. I'm really thankful to be here. Friday was my 10-month anniversary, and it was probably the single most insane day of what's been a pretty crazy 10 months. We had an awful lot of balls in the air that we were juggling on Friday with the boil water advisory, trying to get that lifted, trying to kick off the lead education campaign that was already delayed. Back in February when I got here, there's no way we'd have pulled it off. And that's not anything negative about our staff, it's just how strong they've become, and having Bob on board and Kathy and Sarah, our new billing clerk, and how they held everything together in the office on Friday, and our public works guys taking care of everything they had to take care of, along with the guys from PESI and with help from their engineers to resolve those water issues. It really kind of made me realize the big difference between here and where I was employed prior to coming here, and that is, here everybody cares about the town. And not just our staff, but our council, the members of the authority, the people that come out. I mean, per capita, percentage-wise of population, we have better participation in our meetings than any municipality. And I covered a lot when I was a reporter, covered a lot of municipalities. And it says a heck of a lot about Duncannon. how much you people care about this town, and it makes it really easy for us to care. And, you know, you deserve to be able to turn on your water and drink your water out of the tap. Shouldn't be a problem. Your toilet should flush and the sewage should go where it should go. Your electric, your lights should come on. We're pretty good at that, other than when we had to make the repairs. We've got a lot to do in the coming year. We've done a lot this year to fix the foundation, so now we're in a position to move ahead and make a lot of these changes, a lot of these improvements that have to be made to the utilities. But I just want you all to know that in the coming year, that's my promise to you, is that we're going to make that happen. Your water's going to be right, your sewer's going to be right, your utilities are going to be right, and I can say that with confidence because I know that all the people that are behind that promise all stand for it. The authority, the council, all of your staff. You've got to, you guys have no idea how blessed you are with the staff that you have in this office. I mean, the staff that I have to work with, you know, I've seen staffs other places, and you know, just the way these people, the effort we get, and you know, the way they work together and cooperatively, and there's, I mean, it's just a wonderful place to be. And I just want to thank you all. It's been a great 10 months, and I'm looking forward to the new year. One thing to report that's not in the written report, an issue that came up today. We had a problem with the culminator at the sewer plant again. The decision was made to go ahead when the service guy was here, to have him go ahead and remove it because it was going to have to go back to their shop to get estimates. What he has told us, Roger, correct me if I'm wrong because I know you were there this morning. The last time they had one that was similar in size to ours, it was around $12,000 to rebuild. So in discussing it with Roger this morning, because he happened to be on the scene when it was all happening, the thought was that we would ask council to authorize up to $20,000 so that we'd make sure we have enough. We have to have it repaired. It's not something we can put off, not something we can wait till next year when we do other stuff with the plant. And since we don't have another meeting until the 17th of January, if it comes in, you know, at 15 instead of 12, we wanted to ask to have enough margin so that we could make sure we can have those repairs made. So that's the first item that I would ask you to have consideration for.
I'll move to authorize up to $20,000 from sewer and the even timber to complete the repairs on the, whatever that thing's called.
Commanduter.
Was that second good?
Second, it's good.
Motion, I've made the motion, Roger has seconded it. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
You said from timber.
Okay.
Did you say from timber?
If
Sewer,
needed, it's
timber.
sewer.
If needed from timber,
Yeah.
okay.
Moving right in then to the first item on the agenda under my report. As we all know, we've got a lot of work to do at the sewer plant in the coming year, and a lot of urgency to get it done because of the notices of violation and what we're expecting to have coming, a consent order with DEP. Already they have sent us a letter asking us for a timetable and some plans by, I believe it's January 20th. The discussion that we've had, we feel that the best way to move forward with the sewer plant project would be to have a very small committee spearhead the effort so that we don't have to struggle to get everybody together for meetings and so forth, so it doesn't become a cumbersome process. But then with that committee being able to draw on the resources of all the other people that we have in the borough that have expertise and knowledge and, you know, could put some input into this. I had talked to Mr. Finnan with the authority, and he has agreed to serve on the committee, and then I had also asked Mr. Kirkhoff, because of his finance expertise and his knowledge of the plant, and if he's willing to, I would ask then that the three of us be appointed as this committee to get started on plans for the work that has to be done at the plant.
You good with that, Jeff? I'll move that we appoint Mr. Kirkhoff, Mr. Finnan, and the manager, Mr. Corrigan, to a committee to actively and quickly deal with the DEP notice and the timetable request.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. That includes other operations too, correct, Chris?
I'm sorry?
I'm understanding his motion as being only to deal with those two items.
No, this is to deal with the whole sewer plant
I
project.
understand what you're asking
I will
for.
amend my motion to make it.
Thank you,
Okay.
Craig. Thank you.
Is your second still, okay. So we've got a second to appoint, or motion with a second to appoint a committee consisting of the aforementioned individuals to begin to address the many issues at the sewage plant,
Thank you.
including the timetable to be due in January for DEP. Any further discussion? All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Craig.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, and just so, for folks like Mr. Wolfersberger and Mr. Williams, we're not leaving you guys out. We will be
Fine.
asking for your expertise and help with this, so it's going to be a big project and a lot to do.
Well, call me when the weather's warmer. Yeah.
We'll hold the meetings inside,
My rates
Roger.
go up when it gets below 50.
Next thing, we need to advertise our meetings for 2017. Are we going to stay with the, if we're going to stay with the third Tuesday, that's fine, we can get that advertised. Committee, if you want to make any changes, I need to know. It doesn't need to necessarily be tonight, but in the next day or two, so that we can get those advertised.
If no one has an objection, why don't we plan to, why don't we go ahead and advertise the council meetings as stated, and do the committee meeting advertising after the January meeting? Because I'll give Chris some time to determine.
It has to be, she's probably advertising.
Who's she?
Penn Township,
Okay.
For sewer authority.
for the sewer authority, the
Okay,
joint
I mean, we
authority.
can, if we want to do the authority, the joint authority.
She's advertising the January meeting, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, we think so, yeah.
She's
that-
gonna
that's how we-
advertise the whole next year.
She's, yeah,
Yeah, she's doing the whole.
do the whole next.
That was my understanding how it was.
Yeah, so the change there would be the third Thursday.
We would go
Here.
To the third Thursday.
Yes, we would change to the third Thursday. That meeting this year will be held here at 6:30.
Is it here every month?
Yes, it's our year to host. Every year
Currently,
we
that's-
switch back and forth.
That's currently been the night of the utilities committee meeting. But we had to, it was Greg Rogalski, we were trying to get Greg to be able to attend.
Yes.
And that works with his schedule?
That works with his schedule, and it worked with Linus, and it worked
Yes.
with everybody from Penn Township, and
Okay.
we think everybody from us.
Yes.
So then we have the sewer authority for the third Tuesday here at the borough office
Thursday.
at 6. I thought, so third Thursday at the borough office at 6:30. The borough council meetings the third Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
And are we gonna continue to advertise borough council meetings as also sewer meetings, so that we can have?
I think that's probably not a bad idea.
I would recommend that we do that, and when we decide on when a utilities committee would be, same thing, advertise them as also a potential meeting of the sewer authority.
Okay. Do you want to put that in the form of the motion to cover those three specific items?
Yeah, it's a motion.
Motion by Mr. Cook. Second by Mr. Crawford. To advertise the Duncannon Penn Township Joint Sewer Authority meetings for the third Thursday of every month, starting in January, at the Duncannon Borough office at 6:30. The Borough Council meetings the third Tuesday of each month, starting at 7 o'clock, and also including the Sewer Authority as part of the meeting with the Borough Council. Did I get that right?
And utilities. Well, we didn't decide that yet.
Yeah,
We'll do that
and
when we
then
get
Yeah.
there.
Are we good to defer and
Yep.
Yes,
figure
yeah,
out committees
yeah.
next? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor give consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You got all that, Kathy? Okay.
The next item, tax anticipation loan, as was discussed previously, we have a cash flow situation because our taxes won't start to come in until mid-March to early April, and we're pretty much out of cash in the general fund. Rather than, we had talked previously about the idea of where we might have to look at, going to a bank for a tax anticipation loan. There's sufficient money in the timber fund that we could do it in terms of a loan from there. This would be a loan that would be paid back when the tax revenue comes in this year. It's in our budget. You know, that is, well, assuming the budget's passed tonight, but that is already anticipated in there, that revenue. So, you know, it's not like we will not have, when the taxes come in, to pay it back. It's just a cash flow until we start getting the tax revenue in the beginning of the year.
If the timber fund is tapped for the $20,000 for this commuter thing, will there still be sufficient money in the timber fund to do 3 months?
I believe so.
Was it 87?
I don't think we're gonna need to use the sewer,
Yeah, there's
That's
also a
timber
obligate
for it.
account in timber that has cash in it as well.
Okay.
I believe there's about 80,000 or so obligate account, in addition to what you see on the checkbook analysis.
And Mark, you had a figure, or Bob, did you have a figure, specific figure, what we discussed?
Probably
but-
about 75,000
That's a-
for cash flow, at least for now, approved 75,000. You know, that'll get us hopefully through till taxes come in.
Does our we previously approved to do whatever we needed, does that still carry, or do we need?
That was for this year.
That was for 16. And we may have another cash flow transfer from timber just to get through the year. I think if everybody remembered, I think my original projections were between 200 and 220 we'd be short. We've only sent 170 over there, and if you look at the checkbook analysis, I think it shows negative 59.
58.
So I was within $8,000, you know, 7 months ago, on where I projected it to be. So there'll have to be probably another transfer to get, you know, just through the end of December, and then a cash flow loan beginning in January.
Bob can cover the checkbook balance when we get to the treasurer's report, but just so there's no panic, that minus 58, we are expecting within 2 weeks the electronic transfer for the first reimbursement for the early intervention grant, which will be almost that same amount. So,
Is that a motion, Chris?
pardon me?
You can't make a motion.
Oh. Why not? I'll put it in the form of a motion.
Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Williams, a second by Mr. Croftarmel, to authorize the transfer as needed of funds from the timber account and obligate account within timber for cash flow until property taxes are received in 2017. Any further discussion? All those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And then the fourth item, the Rogale. And they have completed the Market Street sewer project, the sewer replacement project. They were back and did their final work just about a month ago. And you'll see in your packets, you also had their application as well as a certification or certificate for payment from Panoni. And so we're asking for authorization to make that final payment in the amount of $12,934.55.
My understanding is a third of that comes from our township, that's a shared one. So our part piece would be about $8,000.
So moved.
Second. And that's coming out of sewer.
Correct.
Motion by Ms. Young, second by Mr. Kirkhoff to authorize the payment of $12,934.55 to Rogale Incorporated in Harrisburg for the final payment on the sewer line replacement project. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And then the only other thing, the two notices, two pieces of correspondence that Mr. President, that you referred to earlier, just to address those. We received the two notice of violations from DEP, both of those concerning water. The first one has to do with the lead education program, and I've already been in touch with Ms. Metzger at DEP, and we were late with that. We delayed it in part because of the boil water advisory, because the materials for the lead tells people do not boil the water because it will concentrate lead. and we're telling people boil the water because of the possibility of pathogens, because of disinfectant issues. So we held off until Friday. What she had told me in her correspondence was, you are not in compliance and you should come into compliance as soon as reasonably possible. My first reaction was, we better send this stuff out right away, not even wait. In consulting with Greg at Pannoni, he interpreted DEP language to me and said that to him meant she can't tell us that you're okay to wait, but reasonably possible meant, and it worked out that we were able to get the boil water advisory lifted on Friday and then get that started. The second one has to do with the boil water advisory, and it talks about the replacement of the booster pump, which was the issue that came up on Friday in addition to the test results for the boil water advisory. That, when Greg gets here, Rogowski, he could address it further, but I know he's been in consultation with DEP about it. And basically what happened was, when we replaced the booster pump, we went back 2 years ago. They replaced it with one, when it went out, they replaced it with one that was smaller than what was in our permit. And now we replaced it going back to the original specs. Apparently DEP only knew that we replaced the smaller one, didn't know that it was to our original specs, and also that the new pump actually has a variable flow valve on it and was set to what the smaller pump was running, because we didn't want to take a chance putting it in and just cranking it up, and that there might be damage to the infrastructure, because we know we have some fragile pipes. So it was already set at that same flow rate, and that was why they agreed to lift the boil water advisory. I think Greg is addressing that a little further with them, as far as some other questions that they may have on it. Vicki, I don't know if you were...
He briefly filled me in, but said that he would address the details when he got to the meeting tonight, so.
But at any rate, it's something that we've already had discussions with them, and if it's not resolved, Greg's in the process of finalizing the resolution, but they did remove that as far as a condition for the boil water advisory and allow us to lift that for the weekend. So
Both of those notices, I think they were dated the 15th and 16th or something.
yes.
So they were both dated last week, and all these items to address them were already in process. So we're kind of crossed in the mail, if you will.
Other than that, if there's any questions about anything in the written report.
Anything for the manager? Anything else, Chris?
All I have.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to page 2, item number 10 on the agenda, the approval of the treasurer's report. You have the weekly banking review submitted as a treasurer's report, setting all accounts and the projected cash positions and current bank balances. Any discussion or action on the weekly banking review dated November 30th?
Move to approve the treasurer's report. Subject to I always mess that one up.
Motion by Ms. Young, second by Mr. Crawford, to approve the financial report, the treasurer's report subject to audit. Any further discussion? All those in favor give consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving then to ratification and approval of bills. We have a selected check register document dated 12/20, dated today, for the bills to be paid and the bills already paid. Any questions or comments or action on the bills?
Motion to pay the bill.
Second.
Is that to pay and ratify?
Yes. Thank you.
My second stands.
Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Ms. Young, to pay and ratify the bills as presented. Any further discussion?
What's left to pay to Susquehanna County Services? I see that as one of the bills, I just wondered what we had left after that.
I think that's the second.
Is it the second one?
That's the second.
Yeah, I'd have to check that. We've been staggering and working with Mark, sending one check after we get the reimbursement from DCD.
Yeah, I think that one on the agenda for approval, I think, is the September invoice. We've just been waiting.
Yeah, I just was wondering what number we were at now.
Yeah, I think that's number 2 that you're, so we've just been kind of waiting for the cash till you get the cash.
Thank you.
We do enough of these EIPs.
Generally don't do them because things are going well, huh?
Usually not, usually not.
Any further discussion? Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Ms. Young. All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Move then to the standing committees report. Facilities and Fleet, Mr. Epley.
Present time. The guys are refurbishing the truck, and then the term refurbishing means they're giving a good paint job and going over everything. This was a truck that was purchased from Penn Township, and it's a heavier truck than what we have now because of last winter's snowstorm. We decided we needed a heavier and more powerful truck. I went down and looked at it today. It looks pretty good, and they're close to doing what they want to do to have it finished up and ready to go.
Is it going to serve as believed and expected?
Big pardon?
Is it going to function as expected?
I have asked the borough foreman, is he absolutely satisfied with it? He says yes. That's the person we have to satisfy, is going to be under his care. And the other gentleman in the garage at that time, they spoke pretty well of it, that they're interested in keeping that truck on the road, and it's going to do its job, hopefully.
Excellent.
They did a lot of work to it as far as making it look good.
Very good. We've got to have the right tools. Anything else?
I have some questions when we get down to utilities, and I don't see anything in there. I'd like to ask a couple of questions there. And Mr. Kirkhoff, will leave the street signs when you report them.
What's that?
Street signs.
Talk about, yeah, that's on the list for what we talked about at the meeting, yes.
That's all I have there now.
Anything for Mr. Epley? Move then to Finance, Administration, and Communication, Ms. Young.
The first order of business, and just to make sure everybody, the corrected budget should have a yellow mark on the front highlighting 10,200, so you're right, make sure you have the right one. This was the budget that was advertised. So I would like to make a motion to approve the 2017 budget that was advertised.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Young, and second by Mr. Crotharmel to approve the 2017 proposed budget as advertised. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Along with that goes the that's the wrong one. The ordinance number 406 of 2016. So fixing the tax rate to 3.42 mils for general purposes and 0.48 for fire protection.
Was this advertised or we voted?
This was advertised.
Okay.
Is that a motion, Kristen?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the tax rate for 2017 as indicated in ordinance number 406 for 2016.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Motion by Ms. Young, second by Mr. Crotharmel to adopt ordinance number 406, 2016, setting the real estate tax millage rate at 3.42 for general purposes and 0.48 for fire protection purposes. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The other piece that we have is the engagement letter for the 2014 audit. Morris was to send us an engagement letter. We have not yet received that. However, we do not wish to wait until January's meeting to approve moving forward with the completion of the 2014 audit. So I would like to make a motion to approve Morris for the 2014 audit, subject to review of that engagement letter by our solicitor.
Is their charge in line with the services they're providing?
There's not a second yet.
There's a motion.
I'll second it for discussion.
So what was the question? I apologize.
Is their charge in line with what other agencies would charge for that service?
The hope is that it will be less expensive because they've already kind of done it once. So they're going to be redoing what they've already done.
If their fee comes in at what it was in the past, that they charged for 13 and 14, it is probably below what others would charge to do the audit.
I'm hesitant to approve a letter of engagement that we don't have in front of us yet.
And I
We don't know what the
recognize
cost
that.
is.
I
Well,
understand.
You certainly can put a limitation on, and my suggestion would be that the fee be no more than 5% above what was originally in the original 13 engagement letter. Since I don't have that number standing right here.
I'll amend the motion to include to not exceed 5% above the engagement letter that we previously had from Morris
For 2014.
for 2014.
My second stands.
Is everybody clear on the motion? Motion by Ms. Young, and second by Mr. Frothamel to approve the engagement letter subject to review by the solicitor, so long as the cost thereof does not exceed 5% over the previous 2014 engagement letter for audit services by Robert Morris. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And we are setting a schedule that will be published for the newsletters for next year, so that we'll have a clear indication of when information needs to be provided, when it'll be released. And we're also working with the manager on setting advertising rates for that as well, to help defer the costs. And that is all I have under my report.
Anything for Christie? Ms. Young.
I can be Kirsty.
Move on then to Parks and Recreation, Mr. Williams.
Winterfest went quite well. The community really enjoyed using the facilities up at the tavern. We had a really good turnout. The chairperson did an excellent job. The night of music that we held out with the ambulance went very well. A little disappointed in the turnout, but we were competing against Penn State game. So, but we had a nice time. The bands we all enjoyed the music, and it was a event. It was.
That made a few $100s.
Yes, yes, yes. Parks and Rec benefited from a nice donation. Yes. Coming up within a week is New Year's Eve, the sled drop, and that'll be held at the tavern.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah, not this Sunday. Yeah, because you ain't decorated for Christmas yet, so.
That's right.
That's right, you gotta get you in there first. But New Year's Eve starts at 10:30. We have a DJ coming. Lions Club again is going to do hot dogs and sauerkraut. The rec board has quite a few prizes, door prizes to give away for the night. Well, hot chocolate and coffee and so forth. And the towing firm that was there last year will be there again this year to lower the sled. So everything's ready to go. We just hope that we have decent weather. As long as it's not raining, we'll survive.
Did you secure the same entertainer as well?
Yes,
Awesome.
same. Yes, thank you, Craig, for that. And he was gracious enough to come in at the same price this year as he did it for last year. So he enjoyed coming to Duncannon. He said they don't go out usually anymore New Year's Eve, him and his wife, but they came here last year, enjoyed it. He was more than glad to come back.
For the record, that's William Runkle, Bill Runkle from Mechanicsburg, and he's given us a pretty good discounted rate, I believe, for that.
Yes.
And, I'm told I wasn't here last year, but that's what he did.
Yes, he did a very nice
I
job.
appreciate his
Didn't
support.
even complain too much about being cold.
No, he did. So that's basically it that is going on. We're ready to start the next year. Go from there.
A busy year. It sounded like
Yes.
the events went off well overall.
Yes, yes. I'm grateful for my very small rec board. I would love to have more participation in that. They would love to have more participation. But the
Amen.
few people I got, it's like you get too many cooks in the kitchen, you have problems. I got few people and I don't have problems. It goes well.
We are small, but we are mighty.
Yeah. So I thank you, and if there's anything, we do have some future plans coming up, and for this coming year, some new items to add, and possibly some more joint adventures with other organizations. We enjoyed working with the Ambulance Club. Possibly we're going to work with the fire company on a joint adventure coming up. And I've asked the Lions Club if there's anything that we can help them out with, because they really help us out throughout the year.
We've got a lot of really good organizations.
Yes.
The more we can partner
Yes.
with them to do such events, I think the better.
Yep,
Anything else?
that's it.
Anyone have anything for Mr. Williams? Thank you and your committee for your hard work.
Welcome.
Move on then, personnel, legal, and IT. We had a very informal meeting this evening. Mr. Adams came in early just to, I think, kind of brief a little bit and go over some questions he had on some of the happenings that have taken place in minutes for the last couple of years. The agenda items tonight, the action items on the agenda specifically, and I think that was productive and we answered some questions, but certainly we're all learning as we go, and I've been at this table in some capacity for 12 years. And I told him that I'm still not savvy and comfortable all the time when things come up. So I think it'll be a learning process as it is for all of us. That was a good conversation. I also want to thank all the members at the table who received copies of an email Chris sent in reference to his comments about Friday, commending the office staff and the outside staff, and then Mr. Probath's response to that. It showed some, I think, quality camaraderie and communications in the office, and things aren't always wonderful and dandy as we've seen a lot this year, but I think that the communication and the overall morale within our own staff is improving, and trying to keep things headed in the right direction. So there are certainly bumps in the road, but I think that was a good example. Those communications were a good example that not all news is bad news. So thank you for that, Chris. That's all I have under personnel, legal, and IT. Anything for me? Move on to public safety, Mr. Crawford.
Well, at our last meeting, we spent most of our time going over the emergency, well, actually, we distributed the emergency response plan to members, and that is the beginning of a process of kind of jointly reviewing it. Once the committee has had a chance to have some input into a draft of that, or a renewed draft of that, we'd like to bring it out to the fire company, the EMS, the police, to provide service in the area, as well as the county communications center, and all the other stakeholders involved. The other item that's on the agenda for tonight is advertisement of the amended open burning ordinance that's been subject to some discussion at this table in the last few months.
We should have before your proposed ordinance number 407 in 2016, which brings together all the comments we've had the last 3 to 5 months probably, relative to that. Chris did bring up a question that I think is a valid one.
Chris Adams.
Mr. Adams, specifically about grills. Where was that section?
Section 7, under general
C7.
Portable fireplaces, fire pits, chimeneas, and grills may not be used on porches or decks unless the porch or deck is constructed from non-flammable materials and is not covered by any roof or structure. For those purposes, grills includes both gas grills and charcoal grills. It sounded.
We wanted it to not include
That's what I'm asking.
gas grills, yeah.
We should clarify that.
I think we included gas grills because of grease fires are not uncommon with gas grills because of the drip of the grease out of them. but I'll defer to Byron. He's,
Now, I'd
Well,
like to hear
that
what,
last fire we just had in Halifax, earlier this month or the end of last month, that was a direct result of a gas grill behind the house. And in the borough atmosphere, just like in the borough of Halifax, it can be quite catastrophic because it was in close proximity. Obviously, other houses got involved. So that you are looking at the potential, especially in the borough, not so much the township, where your grill could potentially damage somebody else's property.
Now, was it under a porch roof? Or was it
I
just-
don't know the exact, I don't think it was under the porch roof. I
Okay,
think
so it was too
I think
close
it was
to
in
the house.
proximity of the house, but the
Yeah.
grill, you know,
Okay.
it caused the fire.
So this would essentially prohibit being on like a deck,
I think that was
That was my
anything
concern,
except
yeah.
stone, essentially, I would assume, right?
concrete or metal.
Concrete, stone.
Would, I think
Everybody does, we were taking a roll of how many people have problems with
If
it.
it's raining, it's there, it's right on the edge, but it's,
Well, I guess the question then is.
Shit happens.
Is what, what's the definition of non-flammable materials? You know, would a pressure treated deck be non-flammable? I don't think it's non-flammable, but I think the pressure treating gives it some fire retardance.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is in proximity to other, combustibles that would cause a catastrophic event, like another propane cylinder, or, you know, your lawnmowers, or your, you know, stuff like that.
come on.
There is there is a distance from is there a distance in there from the side of a building?
yes.
But not necessarily, this one specifically says may not be used on porches or decks, unless the porch or deck is constructed from non-flammable materials and is not covered by any roof or other structure. So what that would say to me is, if it's on a deck, but more than 10 feet away, it still can't be used because it's precluded on a porch or deck.
What's the fine?
For you, $900.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else, 50 bucks.
It's a range of 100 to 1,000.
Okay,
See?
Is it,
900.
is that for storing? I mean, you live across the street, you know where my grill is. Like, is it
It
like?
what I was gonna
it
ask,
says
like
may
keep
not
them
be used.
Used.
So I don't think that storing it on the, you know, in that space is an issue. I would be okay if, you know, I'm open to discussion, but maybe changing non-flammable to, you know, make it, unless the porch or deck is constructed from fire retardant materials or something like that, which I think an argument could be made that a pressure treated deck is a fire retardant material. Thoughts? Yeah, I don't know.
Let me, the distance thing, I think, would be the key thing. I really don't know if under the porch or deck, because you know, what are you limiting yourself to? If somebody has a nice big, you know, 10 foot high overhang built like a pavilion, or, I mean, what do you limit yourself to? I think the distance factor is the most important.
The number 6 in that same letter C is all fires must be a minimum attached to fire, so it's not gross.
You may want to, instead of having, the porches and decks thing is pretty much a garden apartment or condo type thing for, I forget, well, my wife used to live down Lower Paxton Township in a condo community, and you could not operate the grill in the vicinity of the, you had to push it out to the sidewalk area to operate the grill. It was illegal to do it in the confines of the porch area, and, you know, underneath it. I think that, and that's kind of a common fire code in a lot of places with apartments, condos.
So really, the whole
Townhouses.
idea of number 7 was only as it relates to attached dwellings.
I would assume so.
Okay.
I would assume.
I think the biggest impetus for number 7 was a property down on Market Street with a, you know, big porch upstairs, and the one day driving by, and they had a charcoal grill up there on a wooden porch with a wooden roof and a big flame flying up out of it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that fall into the 10 feet? though?
Wouldn't what would be the recommended distance that you would like to see? Because we can solve that problem on Market Street by distance.
I mean, 10 feet would already solve that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking at least
It's
10.
Even if it's not 10 feet from the wall, it's 10 feet from the next floor, which the roof, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but
still
we
a...
need 10
But I'm
foot
concerned
from the
that
wall.
that 10
and the
feet
ramp.
as it relates to all fires
10 feet away
doesn't
from-
necessarily relate to grills.
Yes. That would, it would have to move up to the grill side too, besides the campfire.
I think the gas grills, I would probably say would be, I would distinguish from charcoal too. I mean, gas grills, even though you can have the grease fire, it's a lot more contained than a charcoal fire where people generally are starting with a flame and lighter fluid, and that tends to get a little, can get a little wilder, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But
Was the grill, was that item in the previous one, or did we discuss
I think we
that?
added that, I think that was because you were talking about the concerns about the wooden porches and things like that,
And I think
having a
it-
fire on top
I
of.
think it would, it may be something to think about doing with multiple occupancy as opposed to single dwellings.
Or even maybe the roof restriction would be the difference. And still not have them on a wooden porch, but, you know, if it's made out of regular wood as opposed to something that's fire retardant.
I don't know if removing the word grills and just saying portable fireplaces, fire pits, chimeneas, and other open flame sources or something, get rid of the word grill would be more appropriate, because that may cover.
Then you got the 10 feet distance.
That's above that. That actually says all fires must be a minimum of 10 feet away from any structure or fence constructed with combustible materials, as well as any vehicles. I heard there was some conversation where you guys have any thoughts. We don't want to make this
Get rid of the
nonsense.
grills, that's good with me, because
Isn't
that's,
that, I mean, that one on Market Street, that would be within 10 feet.
That would be covered by that, the 10
It'd be
foot.
within 10 feet of a car and the building.
And really, the 10 foot with the combustible materials would cover
right.
the others too, so yeah, I think, I mean, I'll defer to Bill if that would be an issue.
I don't have a problem with whatever you want to do here.
So what was your thought?
I thought we were just talking about getting rid of the word grills. I mean, change, maybe the grammar would have to be changed in there, but.
Just make it say number 7, portable fireplaces, fire pits, and chimeneas may not be used on porches or decks unless the porch or deck is constructed from non-flammable materials and is not covered by any roof or other structure. Is that, Mr. Finnan?
I've
Okay.
got
Just as
this
an
friend.
example,
I've got this friend.
I have a little patio that's out in the middle of the yard and it's 10 feet from everything. And the material is that composite material. And right next to that, not on it of course, I have one of the small fire pits that I use. So what you just read would outlaw that.
No, because it's not a combustible
No,
material.
it's not a
Well,
combustible material.
Okay.
That's my other question is, the difference between 6 and 7. 6 references combustible materials, 7 references non-flammable materials, and there's a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also, if I'm just want to add to what he said, the roof. Like, he has a roof, so.
Mine doesn't have a roof, it's not connected to
Right.
a house.
Okay.
And
Sitting out in the
I don't think any of us at the table want to restrict that, that's why we're trying to
Yeah.
finesse
You don't
it.
want to restrict your friend.
That's right.
Craig, most of the time I've seen this in other municipalities, it's been for multi-unit dwelling because it's the imposition on somebody who can't control that event. It's not on your own property if it's a single person or single structure dwelling.
So you could change number 7 to say for
I'm just telling you what I see a
multi-unit
lot.
structures, portable fireplace, fire pits, chimeneas, and grills.
You know, if somebody burns down their
Yes.
own place, it's one thing. If somebody can burn down somebody else's place, it's a different thing. You know, so most municipalities have that requirement if it's a multi-use structure.
Does that language sound comfortable?
Sounds great.
What if it's,
Is that okay, Bill?
hold on, wait. I hate to be the one. What if it's a owner occupied with a tenant?
It's still, I mean, by
You
by
can
what?
still infringe on somebody else's residence.
That would still
in
be
most
multiple
municipalities.
dwelling.
It's a multiple.
But what I'm saying is, what if I don't, but what if I own a house and I rent my upstairs to somebody and I wanna have that?
Suppose that DJ would have a grill on his back porch.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's their property and that's their tenant and
And really, under the ordinances, and pretty much a lot of ordinances in the borough, or any municipality, it's only gonna come down to a conflict. So if you have your house and you rent an upstairs bedroom to somebody, and you have your grill by your porch, or, outside your porch there or whatever, the only way it's gonna come into play is if, A, you burn your place down or something, or B, if Sue and Rick complain about it. You know what I mean? It's
I just
not-
know, I walk by a place that falls under that, that's why I asked.
Yeah, so that's where it's gonna come into play. I don't think anybody's gonna be walking around here checking porches.
If we have the resources to send somebody around to monitor that, I think we are in much better financial shape than anyone.
Well, it depends if
No,
Mike's
change
doing
Tony's
it, you
schedule.
charge him $900.
Yeah. Then you'll be able to hire more
I don't think we can enforce ordinances to generate revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many times you do it? Yeah, really. That's when the checks are.
So what do we wanna do with number 6 and 7?
Up to you guys.
I forget what the word was, I like the multi-unit thing.
Motion that we change the language in number 7.
Three or more, three or more, three or more.
To read that,
That's,
was it multi-unit dwelling?
I mean, you have that's a point,
In multi-unit dwellings, portable fireplaces,
Yeah,
fire
what's-
pits.
What is the
grills,
definition of
grills,
multi? Is that
More than one.
More than one.
More than one.
More than one, more than three? More than.
If you have half a double, that qualifies.
Correct.
If you have an apartment building, it qualifies. You kind of townhouses.
And you're keeping the work grills in there?
wanna change it to charcoal grills and take out gas grills?
Or you could just say open flame or something like that, maybe?
That's true.
A charcoal grill would be an open.
That's what I'm saying, we cover that in.
Not necessarily, you use an electric element to light your charcoal, I do that all the time, so it's not an open flame.
Yeah.
So there is
Well,
a lot
I
of
think that would-
technicality.
But you're also taking the open flame element out of it by doing that.
Right.
What
Yeah, I'd
what
be-
they're
I'd be
talking,
comfortable
somebody
with that.
squeezing the bottle of fluid on it.
Yeah, I hear you.
Chimeneas and open flames.
Across the street from me, that kid does that every day.
So the motion, Mr. Crowtharmel's motion is to amend number 7 under letter C on page 4 to state in multi-unit dwellings, portable fireplaces, fire pits, chimeneas, and open flames may not be used on porches or decks unless the porch or deck is constructed from non-flammable material and is not covered by any roof or other structure.
Second.
Okay. Firemen, that seemed to fit your need.
Grills out, open flames.
Are you guys comfortable with that? Tim?
I'm good. I own my own place, if I burn it down, I burn it down.
Ain't nobody real close to you either, so.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor give consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We then want to advertise the proposed ordinance.
I make a motion to advertise the ordinance with the corrections this evening.
With that single amendment.
Correct.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Young, a second by Mr. Williams to adopt, to advertise ordinance to be numbered 407 of 2016 to include the change in the language of letter C, number 7, as previously approved. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We can advertise it.
I think that was our longest agenda item so far this evening.
back to Mr. Crockermall on the public safety.
I'm done.
Anything for Mr. Crockermall on the public safety?
Craig, one thing, I don't know how much it'll fall under public safety, obviously pertains to it. The Penn Township meeting, I asked the question on the budget item about the workers' comp, and that there was no reimbursement request sent out by the borough for workers' comp.
That very night, I sent an email in the meeting, because they knew I would. And we had just received that invoice. I suspected that it may have just been lost in the shuffle with everything going on. Not that the invoice was lost, but that the process of billing Penn Township and the other municipalities receiving fire protection from Duncannon for their portion, whatever that predetermined portion is. And Chris did respond the next morning or whatever that the bill has been received and those numbers are being worked out. Has that billing gone out to Penn Township?
Yeah, the numbers are being worked out.
The numbers, so it's in process. It's just, I didn't realize that bill came in at the end of the year, so that's in process. Thank you for bringing that up as well. Anything else under public safety? Move on then to streets and infrastructure.
We have
Mr. Furlong.
two items kind of, we'll go with the agenda item first. Mr. Epley had brought to the committee at the last meeting, down in the square, between the new flower shop and, One North Market where you lived. That, when you're coming at the intersection there, about putting in a sign that no parking for trucks on those parking spaces on either side, so that you could see better when trying to enter onto.
The diagonal spaces on the square,
Yeah,
coming from Cumberland Street onto the square.
correct. Somebody had asked Mr. Epley about potentially doing that.
Pat,
Yes.
when you were at this table and doing public safety, and streets,
Actually, I was mostly personnel,
but weren't you on the committee or chairing the committee? Glad you're here. When we put the handicap spaces in some of those spots in the square.
well, that came up, well, I was on facilities at one time.
Okay. So that was kind of a stopgap, I think, to address some of that, because the handicap spaces generally aren't used as often or as long. It's supposed to be a 2-hour restriction. And that's in 2 of the 4 corners on the square. I don't know, it's the one in front of One North Market, in front of the old Miller's newsstand, and the one in front of the insurance agency, Hess agency. Because those are the 2 that were determined were hardest to see. I don't think the other 2 corners have handicap spots.
No.
But I would say that you have difficult visibility coming Cumberland Street from the railroad side, coming into I mean, I think that the square, if a big vehicle parks there, I think there's visibility issues the whole way
Yeah,
around.
I mean, they were asking for large trucks and vans, I believe. We used the example of your van. I mean, you can't, we weren't sure though what you could exactly do is what me and.
I'm working on I went down and took a look at it, and I didn't get a chance yet to put together, I was gonna have for your committee meeting, a report on this, but preliminarily, I think that the best solution, from just taking a look at it, would be to paint stop bars at the intersection so that people know to pull up properly. What we have, the reason you have the problem, sight distance, is where the stop sign sits, is at the square. Basically, the back end of the pull-in parking is equivalent to the curb line of the main thoroughfare. And if we had a stop bar equivalent to that curb line, when you pull up to that spot, you're not in the intersection, yet you're not in the right-of-way, and then the sight distance issues appear to go away. Now, I haven't checked it with enough vehicles down there.
Truthfully, because I know, like, I tried not to park my truck there most of the time that I lived there, because I have an F-250, it sticks out a great deal. So even with a stop bar there to pull up to the edge of where traffic's running, you wouldn't be able to see past that. And if it's, a work van or something like that, you'd have the same issue.
I guess my problem is if you do that, you're saying essentially vehicles that size cannot park on the square. Because even if they're on the farther down spots, it still presents the same issue.
I don't think it presents the same issue if they're in the parallel spots off the square there, like down in front of the road.
It depends on the size of the vehicle. Like maybe if it's a minivan, no, but when you're talking like a big,
If I park there, no one can see.
yeah, if his van's there, you can't, it doesn't matter, you can't see that direction, it blocks. Now, if you're also in a giant vehicle, you can see over top maybe, but.
But there's also, I think, when you're pulled in those diagonal spaces on the square on Market Street, trying to back out of those spaces can be treacherous, depending on the side.
Yeah.
Well, I might
Mr.
interject, you just mentioned something there about parking in front of the Doyle. You've got another issue on that square. You got a walkway that comes right off of the front of the Doyle. And if there's a parking space right up almost to that crosswalk. I mean, it's like a couple of feet at most. If there's something large like his van, I'll keep using his van.
Thank you.
If there's a van or something parked there delivering, say, the door. Somebody walks out from there, you can't see them.
Right.
I almost had somebody there one day. They stepped right out behind that thing, and it was jam on the brakes time. And I was talking about that, and someone else had the same problem.
Do we have to have that
So,
crosswalk there?
that parking space right there is an issue too, while you're parking.
There are crosswalks on both corners, in
Right.
front of one north and one south.
But you tend to be able to see.
But I'm saying, maybe it's appropriate to eliminate the one at the Doyle and just try, people don't follow crosswalks, but try to encourage them to use the marked
Yeah, I
ones
think
that are.
the one at the Doyle was probably because there's supposed to be a flow of people there, and it's narrower space, so people would not want to go across the larger space. But is it really needed? I don't.
I certainly appreciate everything you're saying, because I think that these are they haven't been big issues for us yet, but they certainly could be. Both the parking on the square and parking, pulling out onto the square, and the extra, I won't say extra, but the second crosswalks and both ends.
Something to think about.
So did the committee are they making a recommendation?
No, we don't
or-
really, I don't think we really had a recommendation. I think we wanted discussion, right, Frank? We talked about what somebody had said to you, and that's why Frank brought it to the committee. I'm not even sure what recommendation I have. I mean, I guess the recommendation could be to make it so that larger vehicles cannot park there, but I'm not sure if that really solves anything, and I'm looking more for a solution than just a stopgap, I guess.
And maybe this is a stopgap, but the way things are right now, I can't tell you the last time I saw the square park full. We have a parking restriction there, but there's not a whole lot left on the square, unfortunately. That's the reality. PNC Bank's for sale sign went up today. I've got a commercial space on the square that's still vacant. The space, but I guess it would be 2 North Market, still sits empty. So there's not a whole lot. If you compare us to Newport, for instance, which I think is a fair comparison, there's a lot of hustle and bustle in Newport Square, any time of day. We don't have that. So right now, I think putting a restriction for those vehicles and forcing them to park on Cumberland Street in parallel spaces, I don't think is a big deal. But down the road, that could change.
A lot of commercial vehicles are just gonna ignore you.
Well, I mean, if you look at they do beer deliveries, they just park in the middle of the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We could throw a statue in the middle of the road, that would work.
There's a fountain there, Roger.
Is a viable option just to expand the no parking further back from the intersection and paint the curb yellow?
Say that again?
Is a viable option on all 4 corners just to push the
To
parking?
eliminate a space.
Well, a space or a half a space and just reline it, push it back further from the intersection?
I don't think
Not gonna change it.
I don't think you change it.
It's such
I don't know.
it's such a short stretch, pretty much no matter where, and I was kind of
No matter
thinking
where
myself
you are.
today, because I thought that maybe if I pulled in that spot down by the Doyle, the diagonal spot, that it wouldn't create an issue, but it really did, and I saw
Still
somebody trying to
created
pull
an
out there and they were having trouble, so. I was, I tried to be cognizant of that when I lived there, even though it wasn't a legal issue, and, I tried to do a little workaround today, and it didn't do me any good, so.
Not if it's a solid vehicle.
Well, you also have a problem if you got 2 big pickup trucks parking on both sides of Cumberland, and only one person's either gonna come down or go in, because you can't both go in and out.
And that's where it would push the problem.
Yeah, well, it's already happening now.
I don't live there anymore.
That's true. We can put a stoplight in.
Yeah, traffic, right?
Yeah, traffic light.
Statue. Of any rate.
All y'all are crazy.
Jeff, do you want to discuss that maybe some more with the committee, maybe come up with a recommendation, or maybe, I mean, do we want to have Pinoti look at it?
That's what I was going to say. Really, if I may, what you're talking about is an engineering study to determine site distances.
But that costs money, we're trying to be experts
Right.
with
I
that.
understand.
Well, I understand that, but
Now,
Yeah, we're
let me
not
say
allowed to
this.
practice
The
law
engineer-
without a
You do it for 900 bucks.
It is a quirk of the PennDOT regs that the engineering study doesn't have to be done by an engineer, curiously enough.
But I would recommend that you have, traffic engineer take a look at it and maybe make some recommendations on what could be done. But knowing you don't want to expend the
I don't want to do
money.
that right now.
Roger, you
Yeah.
have a helmet.
Why don't we, okay.
Basically what I thought I was.
I was hand in the back, yes.
So, I have a comment. My name is Josh, I live on that intersection you're talking about in the square. Excuse me. And I drive a large truck, and I make a point to park to the left, like the far left of one of those spots, so I'm not blocking the people's view. If you do make a move to, block off that section for trucks, you could maybe, designate it, that trucks can only park on the far left. Maybe 2 spots on the far left, or something like that.
Right. I know an engineer, a former traffic engineer, who wouldn't cost anything, and may be able to talk to the committee, or meet with the committee and provide some thoughts or input for free.
Right, but maybe you could beautify the square with some improvements.
Right, right.
That would be
And I think
traffic
some of
calming
those,
and
traffic calming, I think
accommodate.
some of those items were items that were discussed back when revitalization was trying to happen.
Accommodate, the parking need, and also, I'm thinking of PennDOT has those multimodal
Well,
grants available,
PennDOT
so.
has they have a program where they'll send somebody out for some of that stuff. Forget what it's called. Penn Township used it for Linton Hill Road.
The local
The
technical
local,
assistance program?
yeah, local technical assistance.
LTAP.
LTAP, yeah.
Yeah, and we have LTAP people in our office that do that work, so if you don't mind, I won't charge you. I'll check and maybe throw out some suggestions.
Soul charges.
Yeah, we'll start.
If you want to do anything for free, we're grateful.
LTAP is funded by the state, there's no
Right.
cost to the municipality. And I've seen that actually in some of PennDOT's materials, so I think that may be a good place to start.
Sounds good to me.
Just shoot you some initial recommendations.
Roundabout.
Yeah, that's what,
Jeez, let's marry it to it.
that's what I'm thinking.
Everybody expected insurance.
I like the roundabout.
Did you have a second?
That'd be terrible.
There was a second item we
Street
talked.
signs. Or a street sign.
No, it was, the
Snow
second item.
emergency signs.
Yes, that's what it was,
Yes.
yes, that's exactly what it was, for the snow emergency route. And you had that in your report, I think.
Yes. We had some that were missing, some that were badly faded, about a dozen total. I think they actually picked them up yesterday.
Right.
We ordered signs for replacement for those.
When the borough redid the parking ordinance 2 or 3 years ago, there was a lot of work done with that to establish the 2-hour parking zones and all of that. There was to be a review of the snow emergency routes because I think there may have been some that were marked snow emergency routes that weren't actually snow emergency routes in the ordinance. I don't know that review was ever done.
Frank.
Check it.
Frank was on that.
Yeah, okay. Do you remember if that was done?
We had a snow emergency route, but I don't think they were ever signed properly.
That's what I'm saying. Like Cemetery Street is marked as a snow emergency route, but I'm not sure of this, but I don't think that was listed in the old ordinance. It may be in the updated ordinance, but that's something if Mike
We'll check on it.
perhaps has some time to check the signs, make sure the signs match the ordinance, and if we have states that are in the ordinance but aren't signed, they should be.
Okay.
Mr. Wolfersberg.
Dumb question, I think I know the answer already, but High Street is a snow emergency route because of the floodplain? Is that the reason High Street is the snow emergency route?
I truly don't know that.
Because we got Market Street that nobody parks on. And it's a nice wide street. And High Street, when you do a snow emergency, everybody has to get their vehicles off the street, back into the alleys and whatever. Some people don't have off-street parking, so they gotta
Right.
park in parking lots. Why is that still a snow emergency route? Was that because Market Street at one time was a state road?
Yes.
Now, it's not a state road anymore, is it?
No. Just something never brought up before, Mike?
Why
to-
don't
to
we look at that?
investigate?
Because that would alleviate a lot of my, I mean, I don't mind, I move the cars and then they can plow better.
Well, I was just gonna say,
Actually,
for
it is
plowing,
nicer.
The
But-
key is that for the, now, I haven't even looked at our ordinance, does the mayor have the power to declare a snow emergency? It's usually, the key is for your new mayor to be judicious in his declaration of snow emergencies. They're only for big snows where you have to do extra
Oh, I
snow removal,
understand
not
that, I'm just
regular
saying,
plowing.
why is it High Street and not
Well,
Market Street?
I would say that my recommendation would be that both ought to be, because both in those kind of situations, there are two main thoroughfares that we ought to have clear for, both of them, I think, for emergencies.
I think
would be
one
important.
component is access to get snow off the street.
Right.
And I think one component is access for fire trucks. and
Oh, yeah, I
ambulances.
understand the snow emergency, I just didn't understand a narrow two-lane road versus a wider two-lane road with no cars parked on it.
I think because the narrow two-lane road, you need that extra help to be able to have access to remove the snow in the event of that big of a snowfall.
No,
Yeah, the,
you're not understanding.
No, I understand,
Why
I'm saying I
don't
think
we
it ought to
make-
be both, is
Why
what
don't
I'm
we
saying.
make, I don't want both, I wanna move it off.
But I want my crew to be able to remove
But
your
I
snow
wanna
so that you
know-
can get
no,
places.
My question is, why is it High Street and not Market Street?
Are we sure
There's
it's
a
not-
reason that,
You can't park at Market anyway until you get downtown.
Post office area.
well, that's what I mean, why is our snow emergency route on a road where we have to make everybody move their cars, when we have a road that we don't have to have everybody move their cars?
But I think the point Chris was trying to make is, we still want them to move their cars so that we can plow it and clean it off.
You can clean off one.
That's not my question.
Why? We might, nobody.
That's why it's
Who sets
a,
it?
that's why it's a snow emergency, it's set by ordinance, isn't it?
No.
The purpose of snow emergency routes is so that emergency vehicles have access.
At that time, that was a state road.
That's what I wanted
We
to know.
cannot, at that time, we could not. From that time on, this question has never been risen until right now.
Right.
So why did we sit and care about whether or not there was no emergency route signs on Market Street? I didn't care about it until he brings it up and wants to know why Market Street isn't and High Street is. That's why. Way back when, that was a state road and we couldn't do that.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So think about maybe changing it.
But we would still have to come up with a way, Mike, that we could get you to
move
move
my
your vehicle when the plow wants to take it the whole way up.
Even
to
if
the
it's
third.
not a snow emergency route, I move all my vehicles
I know
out
you
back
do.
so I don't have to
I know.
shovel snow.
From the declaration perspective, from the declaration of the snow emergency
Yes.
perspective, there's some legal support that by it being signed as a snow emergency route, you identify it, clear the snow emergency routes, make them accessible.
Oh, I
So
understand
keeping
all
it
that.
as a snow emergency route,
We gotta have a snow emergency route.
Right.
I understand, I'm not saying get rid of it, I'm just, both of them wondered why it was High Street and not Market Street, but that makes sense, it was a state road before.
Yeah.
I didn't know if the floodplain had anything to do with it.
I wouldn't think, because not all markets.
And I know, Mike, you move your vehicles, your neighbor moves theirs,
Oh, yeah.
but then we go 2 doors down and they won't move theirs
Yeah,
unless
yeah,
they're
yeah.
told.
Right.
Not you, I'm going south, not north. Yours is in your backyard.
No, it's just-
Yours in, so you can't
Last
get
year,
them
when
out.
we had that huge storm, one of the first things I did was sit and call a bunch of churches coming down High Street and ask for permission for residents to park their vehicles there, and we advertised that. There were certain churches that
Right.
certain denominations that refused to allow that,
Oh,
and there were other ones that
I
were
know
like,
one of them, 'cause I got-
absolutely. So,
signs on my car about that. But yeah, it is an issue with some people don't have off-street parking and they gotta go down to sled work somewhere or someplace and park their car.
And
My
the
next
people
door
on
neighbor,
Market Street won't have any churches to take their cars to.
well, they don't have
Take them
to,
up to High Street.
they don't park on, they come up to High Street. There won't be a snow emergency route. I just asked, you know, maybe we could consider changing that so.
now we beat us to open burning.
Oh,
Yes.
Sure,
What?
sure, we'll put it on our committee's agenda. for the next
I
meeting.
mean, just take a look at it. Maybe there's a reason you don't wanna do it. I don't know. You know?
5 versus come back up.
Anything else under streets and infrastructure?
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I got here late. I got late from work. I do have a question.
Mr. Brown.
H. Patrick Bruner, Hugh Patrick, or Pat, 501 High Street. There's a sinkhole on our alley. Is the borough going to do anything other than setting up blockades?
Yes, we're in the plan, Pat. There's an agenda set up to take care of that. The reason it wasn't opened up this week is because it's so cold and we had water problems and some problems at the sewer
Well,
plant.
my concern is, I mean, I talked to a borough council member not too long ago about that, before this all happened, and when I was on borough council, I talked to the former manager about that. He argued with me, long story short is, this has been going on for, that hole is a lot bigger than people think.
Yes.
We had a big rain, and this last, everything's going down there. If my chimney would fall and hit my neighbor's house, who's responsible?
If your chimney would fall and hit your neighbor's house.
Because of the sinkhole.
Because of the sinkhole.
I'm not gonna answer that question.
First of all, we have no reason to believe that it is a sinkhole in the traditional
I'll tell you
sense of a sinkhole.
It is a sinkhole.
Okay, the
It's been
gentleman,
going on- Greg,
excuse me?
When did I leave borough council? 12 years ago, at least? It's been going on since then.
That's been that long.
You're gonna be, yes. When did we lose our borough police? 'Cause I left when Gary.
2010, 2011. 2011.
I will ask, since Mr. Rogowski just joined us
I
and
was gonna point to the guy behind you.
he's the one who, from the engineering firm who came and looked at it, I'll let him address the.
Perfect timing.
This is the hole's neighbor.
Are you on the Bilko door side or the opposite side?
On the opposite side.
At the request of Mr. Corrigan, we had investigated what the issues are particularly related to that subsidence, that hole, whatever you want to call it. We initially reported it was a sinkhole. Based on the geology of the borough, which is not a karst area, it's not a sinkhole in its traditional sense. We believe that the most likely cause was one of a couple things. One, some type of abandoned utility that's actually collapsed, something of that nature. Or number two, that the area, the fill or whatever was placed underneath there at some point in time is decayed or something of that nature. But the rocks that are reported within the geologic studies of the area would suggest that this is karst topography.
To answer the first question, we're going to do more than barricades. It's on the radar, we have the engineer already out there looking at it. The plan is to figure out what it is, if it is a collapsed drain line or something, and remove whatever we need to remove and
If
fill it
it's a
in and
sewer line,
secure it.
who's responsible?
If it's a sewer line, if it's a main, it's the borough.
We have no indication that there's sewer present in that alley.
Well, see, that's the issue I had with one of the former borough managers. He showed me where my sewer came out. I said, I mentioned his name. I said, you're wrong. It's a sewer line. I guarantee it's a sewer line.
Well, the recommendation we made to the borough was actually that they do some exploratory digging. And that if and when they open that area up.
Because my sewer line comes out right onto that alley.
Okay. But that's information that wasn't available to us to make that determination.
It's not on the borough records because, I'm not gonna mention his name again. He showed me where I said,
Pat, before you leave tonight, if you could leave your personal contact information with Chris, when we start to move forward and if Greg comes back out, they can maybe try to meet you there and
because I know my
look
sewer
at some
line
of that.
goes straight up to that alley. And I think
That is-
Dobbs, because
not sure about the ultimate.
We've established for several years that the drawings that we have available to us on both water and sewer aren't right. Yeah, I mean, they're poor. Benotti's been working diligently for a couple of years trying to piece that together along with Pessy and people at this table. And we can't dig everything up. So as we replace valves or repair valves or fix leaks, we're trying to make notes and trying to create something that is very difficult to create without X-ray vision. We found on Market Street, for example, during one sewer line project, that the sewer line ran directly above the water line on Market Street. So, that it's a mess, and that this is probably one of those situations where unfortunately the maps don't show what's really there. So if you can give your information to Chris before tonight, we'll try to.
The former manager actually told me, he says, "Did you change anything?" I said, "It's cast iron." No, I did not change it. Nobody uses cast iron anymore. Yeah, I don't see it, Chris gets it.
Pat, do you ever remember in front of your property over there on either side of the street a storm drain? Catch basin, let's put it that way.
Not to my knowledge.
Rest assured, we're well aware of it. It's been reported a couple times, and we've started to.
When we had talked about it last week, the week before, we had hoped to look into it last week more, but then all the issues that came up prevented that.
Exactly.
It was,
We had a lot of water challenges.
yeah, it was,
a lot more water.
the hope was looking at last week, but didn't happen, and the weather has part to do with it too.
So we'll work on it.
Appreciate it.
Stay up, keep on top of this. Thank you, Mr. Bruner, and Merry Christmas. Anything else for streets and infrastructure? Okay, move on to utilities. I don't know, has there been, in Mr. Leonhard's absence, has there been any utilities discussions?
I have a couple things.
Mr. Williams?
Under utilities, 2 items. We've been tossing around the idea of putting some more light on the square.
Thank you.
Okay? We have not actually came up with what kind of signpost or light post. Right now, Dillsburg, whatever they're using, really looks good. And it's not a big post, it's not a big light, but it lights up the intersection. So what we would like to do is, if you people can remember the ones here from the past in this town, in the square, we used to have a cross, an X at Christmas time. It went from one corner to the other corner and back across, and then there was colored lights and all that on it. What we would like to do is that cable and stuff is still there. We've looked at a LED light. Where Mike has researched this with our people we buy our lights from. Wolfenberger, from being on the utilities committee, he went over to electrical specs, looked at it. It seems like it's going to be an answer. Maybe not the total answer, but the answer for the time being. It would hang in the center, the light would come down this way. So I'm asking council if we could possibly approve purchasing that from the electrical fund, and it would be somewhere, I think the light's like $287, $290, and a few feet of wire, so not to exceed $400.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second. Motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Crotharmel, to approve up to $400 for the purchase and installation of an LED lighting fixture for the center of the square. Any further discussion?
I'll ask Bill, I guess, his motion was out of the electric fund.
Yes.
And my understanding is we have to be careful with doing that because of the PUC stuff.
Same as the street light, I would
Well,
assume.
and that's what I don't know that was correct. So that's, my concern is that we're judicious in spending the correct funds. I don't know that should come out of the electric fund.
Correct. Well, where does your street light, I mean, you have a street light fund?
Yep,
That's where it should,
it's in electric.
okay, well, that's where it should come from.
Okay?
Okay.
We have a motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Crotharmel. Spend up to $400 for an LED lighting fixture for the center of the square from the electric fund, specifically under the street light line. Any further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The other thing on utilities is, Mike has been going over a lot of the equipment, and you know, our workforce is, like Chris said, they're tremendous, both inside and out, and I should have thanked you all when I was on rec board, but I thank you for everything you've done for me and my rec board this past year. But the chainsaw that is carried on the line truck that is needed, and it is only used on that electrical end of the, if a tree branch, a tree falls, that saw is used nowhere else other than there. I think it's 12 years old, and it's getting weak. It's still working, but Mike can tell the loss of power through that. He asked us if we could consider replacing that saw. It's about $400 for it to replace that saw. If I'd like to make a motion to replace that saw on the line truck, up to $400.
I'll second it.
A motion by Mr. Williams, second by Ms. Young, to replace the chainsaw on the line truck, not to exceed $400. Any further discussion? That's coming from the electric fund, I presume.
I would assume that that's okay.
It's used exclusively on the line
On
truck.
the-
Yes,
exclusively
on the line
line
truck,
truck.
and that's the only place that saw, I mean, don't worry, Mike, don't let no one, I work for you. You don't touch that saw. Because when he goes up in the bucket and he wants it, it better be working. Yes, it is on the line truck only.
Your motion, or your second still, Christie?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor give consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, and that's all I have at this time. I do have some stuff under sewer, so whenever you want to bring that in.
That's the utility.
Okay. I just need the approval of council to, Rieger and Adler sent their proposal in for next year for the sewer authority's attorney. Same money as what it's been in the last 3-4 years that I've had any dealings with it. Their rate is $140 per hour, flat fee, and $250 for attendance of regular scheduled monthly evening meetings. I just need council's approval
Is
that
that
we go
a
ahead with that.
split between us and Penn Township? No?
No, this is for our authority,
Strictly-
only our
Oh,
our
okay, okay,
authority.
I was thinking joint.
Yeah, they have their own, we have our own authority.
Is that a motion?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Actually, Bill and I had talked about this because I had some questions, and I think he was going to have correspondence with the solicitor for the authority and suggest to them that the authority should submit a budget for council, because in the lease agreement, there's supposed to be a budget that the authority passes and funded by council. And I had concerns, the reason I talked to Bill about it, I had concerns whether or not we had spending authority through the borough budget to pay authority bills. And Bill said, yes, we could continue to do that this year because that's how it's been handled and it was budgeted before. But that the suggestion was that we have that correspondence with Mr. Finnicle. And
The gentleman sitting beside you and I are working on that budget
perfect.
as we speak. We brought it up last week. The issue was brought by Penn Township to us. We do have a 2016 budget, which is sewer, which was approved, and we're working on the 2017 budget.
Yeah, I'll defer to Bill, he's the expert, but I think I don't think the council approves your spending as the authority. I think you have your budget as the authority and you approve your own spending. I don't think you need council's approval,
Okay,
but I could be wrong on that. It's a,
No, that's correct. They're an independent body, but it needs to be part of a budget.
right. And that we're working on, to straighten out that. We're hoping to have it done by next week.
I was hoping to have it done by next week.
But, so, so we can just really do this out of our own budget and so forth. The other thing is, Ben,
Before you go any farther,
yes,
you had a motion, we did not have a second.
I rescind.
You
If
rescind the
I
motion?
don't need it, I'll just take it out.
That's, okay, yes, all right.
The other thing is which we've sat here and we've listened to the belt press, okay? We've got it to the point where we think it's gonna run and it's gonna work, but now we can't haul the sludge away to run that press. So we have to bring a company in, whether it's Walters, Klein, or whoever, and haul it out liquefied. Correct me if I'm wrong, you two gentlemen, I'm only going off memory. Every time they come in to take a load out, is about $3,000, or it would be about $3,000 a month in that neighborhood. Is that close to being right?
I think it had been 10 cents a gallon,
Okay,
and we were doing 25, 30,000, so it's pretty close.
okay.
Chris, you would know as far as,
I saw the invoice, but it only showed a total
Well,
and a
I
truck
know
amount.
what
It
we
didn't-
spent, I can tell you what we spent in the last month, about 3,300. 2 times, 2 trips. One was 1,900 and some odd dollars, and the other was 1,800.
It's in probably our.
Yes, it's
Probably
on
pretty close.
expenses. So, we don't even know if, when we do get the permit approved to get rid of the haul the solids out, if we're going to, how long the press is gonna hold up. We're in the process of redoing the plant, considering the loan to redo the plant. So we tossed the idea around, and I'd like you guys' opinion on it. Actually, I would like an approval on it. We can get a better rate if we do a yearly contract with Walters, Klein's, that's 2 quotes we have. To just have them come in instead of on call. They come in twice a month, whatever it takes. If they come in 1 time a month, they'll take 4 truckloads out, basically, is what they'll take at a time. Then we don't have to worry about the belt press, we don't have to worry about that piece of equipment upstairs failing, costing us more money in the long run. Less hours, time-wise,
For the operator.
on the operators. So the savings is gonna be pretty close to paying for what a yearly contract would be on, just to have it hauled away. It helps with the issue with DEP too. It helps that issue.
It was 3,300 last month.
Okay, 3,300 last month. And we done some quick calculations here with their quotes, and we were right around 3,000.
Yeah, there's 2 quotes here.
Yes.
Walters and Klein's. Klein's was 3,000 for 30, we went with 30,000 gallons. I just did this fact before the meeting. Theirs is all-inclusive here.
Yes.
There could be, if it takes longer, they could charge extra some. The other one, we're not positive about, I believe you said.
Right.
It's a lower quote, actually, but there may be other fees that you have
We're
to
not
get.
certain with his other fees on Walters.
Phil?
He doesn't stipulate that. I mean, we'd be more than willing to go back and get these exact figures, but we were just really wanting to know if it's something we should move forward with, or the engineer seems to be in favor. I hope he was that Monday night with this plan.
We
with
did
us.
recommend that as a
Yes.
stopgap measure in the next year or so to, as Roger indicated, address the DEP issues related to the belt press specifically. Number 2, buys us some time until we figure out what we're gonna do. And obviously, it's an expenditure of, say, $30,000 over the course of the year versus $300,000 for whatever we do with the belt press. So we would recommend that
Roger,
path be
just
investigated.
Just one caution, I mean, we're looking, you're over the bid limits.
Yes.
So this is gonna have to be a competitive bid and just
Correct.
spec and, so.
Yes.
So who
And-
does that? Who drafts the bid, and is that something you would do, or?
Working with Bill and with the
We figure
engineers,
it out,
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
It's the difficult bit's the technical aspect, what they're bidding.
And actually, we could use, this is probably, Klein's is probably the best thing that you would wanna look at and bid what is on this sheet, because this includes everything. They're hiding nothing, okay? And I'm not saying Walters is hiding anything, don't take it the wrong way, but there is possibility for some other charges there that aren't there.
There's overages that are listed in Klein's as if we go over this, where the other one just is, this is the rate.
So I mean, be more than glad to turn these over to Chris, and he could use the Kleins as a base to go out to bid with.
I'll move we authorize the manager to coordinate with the solicitor and the engineering firm and Pesci as needed to create an RFP for sludge removal services for contract for 2017.
Works for me, I thank you all.
There's a second.
We have a motion.
I'll second it.
I've made the motion, Christie has seconded it.
Just for clarification, do you want us to bring that back for approval before we issue it, or is it, once Bill approves it, we can get it out on the
I
street?
think with the information we have, we can move that
Okay.
forward. I'm good.
Great.
Yep.
I'm good with it too.
In your RFP, make sure you get your fuel surcharge kind of thing in there too.
Yes, that's one of the things that was not on the other one, it's on this.
Mr. Finney, you're gonna be looking at it before it goes
I
out,
was just
so.
saying, Kevin, you went to them, right? You talked to Clyde, so Kevin, another person asked too.
Yes.
Or Todd, whoever.
So we can have our professionals, both contracted and in-house, review that.
Yep.
Awesome. I've made the motion, Christie has seconded it, to authorize the RFP to be created for sludge removal services contract 2017. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that I have at the present time on that.
Anything else, reference to utilities?
I have a couple of questions here. We're trying to get the sewer authority organized into a working authority. Where do we stand on that?
I'll defer to Mr. Dissinger, who was in communication with their solicitor.
There's been some correspondence back and forth. We need to develop, get a better handle on what outstanding obligations are backed up by the borough itself that would need to be cleared up if operations went back to the sewer authority. So I've done this before. Okay, the actual transfer is just a matter either of terminating the lease, because it's just a lease rental, or doing a double lease back, where you lease it back to the authority. It could go either way, they're relatively simple. The tricky bit is making sure we don't put in jeopardy any outstanding bonds, loans, tax things that are covered by this, by doing that. I have a request in. I know that the borough office is reviewing what obligations are currently backed up, funded by, dependent upon, tax exempt because of, the way things are set up. And that's going through the process of the financial reviews right now. So that's where we're at with it.
We were hoping to have this done by March. Do you see any problems with that date?
I think perhaps that's a little optimistic, but we can certainly target that.
There are probably gonna be some PennVest approvals required for the assumption.
Right, that's we have to develop what they are, and then figure out how to do that. Right, and
There is a
that's
PennVest law, and-
that's the difficult bit.
Right, and that probably will take more than a March timeframe to get the PennVest.
If we know what they are, then we can give a better handle. That's why I said optimistic. That the optimism being there's nothing we got to handle, but I think there is.
Yeah, there is definitely a PennVest loan related to the sewer system.
Yeah.
Right, now who has that loan? Does the sewer authority take that loan out? The borough took that loan out. And the sewer authority then is, in the mix of that loan, what?
Well, I believe the balance is around $300,000.
Well, I don't care about that. What I wanna know is what is the sewer authority's involvement in the Penn Best loan? Because to get a Penn Best loan, we had to be a sewer authority.
I don't know that I saw the documents.
Oh, okay. And
That's what we're trying to
That's
get.
what we're trying to find.
We're trying to get them in our hands.
So you gotta figure it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My,
Okay.
my understanding of how the payment structure works is the borough transfers dollars to a bank account that is controlled by the authority. So my assumption is it's an authority loan. But that's only an assumption, because I have not seen any actual documents related to it.
This is that account, that
And
account
this is
that
one of
was
the
a
things
surprise
that
at Orrstown.
we're handing off to your new finance person, which he probably doesn't even know about at this point. So,
Just minimal.
Generally, the
We had
way
it,
these
yeah.
work is the authority is actually, the Authorities Act of 1945 was developed so that
you would do the
boroughs could,
financing.
yeah, and the authorities did the financing, but the borough or the municipality always had to back the loan because they're the only ones with assets to back the loan.
And tax
And that's
authority.
just, that's probably the way this is, the way,
Typically, Penvest loans, I'm gonna say typically again, typically Penvest loans are backed by the full faith and credit of the borough, their
Right.
taxing power.
yeah.
If it would be a bond, typically sewer and water bonds are issued as revenue bonds backed by the authority and the borough's ability to raise revenue sufficient to pay the bond. I believe if it is a Penvest loan, which I believe it is probably in all likelihood backed by the full faith and credit of the borough.
Right.
Which then gets into assumption rights and so forth of the authority because it has no full faith and credit to back that loan. But we'll let your solicitor handle
We'll
that.
figure it out. But we have to develop the facts upon which we're proceeding, so.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I have another one. Our water negotiations with Penn Township. We have a problem here that we're running out of time possibly on making a decision whether we're gonna go with Penn Township on this loan that we're gonna get through CEDACOG. I'm not sure how that loan's structured, but is the borough gonna make a decision here soon about, are we going to keep with our water system, or are we going to join with Penn Township and share the water at Sunshine Hill?
This was discussed last month, and the surety was that we would see the EIP document. I think even Chris's report says first week in January. And the gentleman from CEDACOG indicated that was adequate time to let us absorb that and make a more informed decision.
So we still have time left on this.
Yes.
All right,
That's as reported by, what was his name?
Mr. Siegel?
Bill Siegel.
Mr. Siegel. That was the discussion last month.
And as a clarification, it's a grant, not a loan.
I meant for it, yes.
Okay.
Well, that'll take care of that then. I just want to make sure we're not running out of time on this.
At this point, I don't believe we are. But both projects, I think everybody in the room knew they weren't gonna be quick projects, but we're trudging forward. Anything else?
That takes care of it.
Anything else relative to utilities? Okay. Do we wanna take a break and do an executive session, at Mr. Kissinger's request, and then come back for unfinished business? I'll move guess we're not adjourning into executive session, but we move into executive session.
You need a motion and state the purpose for executive session for purpose of
For the purpose of
discussing
potential litigation.
potential litigation.
Executive session for the purpose of potential litigation. I made the motion, Mr. Cronbaum in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, Mr. say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to the front room, you guys can stay here.
Borough, we
Might
don't
take
care.
more than a day.
I assume.
Are we back? I'll move that we re-enter regular session.
Second.
All those in favor, give consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We entertained a brief executive session for the purposes of potential litigation. There's no action to come from that executive session. Move then to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business from the table? Any new business?
Mr. Chairman, are you going to appoint someone as chairman of the utilities?
I was hoping to do that in January.
Okay, all right.
And figure out the meeting schedule at that time. Does that seem appropriate?
Yep, I have a committee, a person wanting to join the Streets and Infrastructure Committee.
Okay.
I don't have his name offhand, we'll save
Okay.
that for,
We can do that in January as well?
yeah, I'm not, I mean, he already can come whenever he wants anyway, so.
Absolutely.
What mechanism do you want in place to, like, are we planning on keeping the committees as they are? Like, how, if somebody wanted to be something else or whatever, how would we put that mechanism in place to get that change?
If anyone, would like to look at that for January, let me know. And we can realign the committee as needed.
Okay.
If you'd like to see yourself somewhere else. Ron was on
I was on
Utilities.
four
four
committees.
committees. So he took on a lot, so I don't know that, Chris in this instance wants to take on four committees.
Why don't we keep it the same for January, keep any meetings the same?
Right.
I would say we leave it, Chris, if there's anything that particularly interests you, contact, all the other committee members are on our website, so if you wanted to, you would be on, let's see, some committees. We were on utilities with you, with
Ron.
and then any other committees, you could talk to the same people and see what typically talk.
Well, I guess my concern more is if there's four and he doesn't want to do one of them, we need to find someone else to take that over. So that's, I guess they're just, and I know that's a
think he
delicate.
basically chaired one,
He chaired utilities.
he chaired
He
utilities.
served on personnel, he served on streets and infrastructure, and he served on facilities.
Facilities, yeah.
And I did speak to him that, there's no problem with him taking chair of utilities, even though he's lacking that knowledge, but the rest of us on the committee would help him, because it's a total learning process, and we would work with him if he so decided to do that.
And in that token, I don't know that Ron necessarily had utilities expertise either. So, I don't think any of us are experts in the field that we've taken. But
No.
I think Ron just really, that was something he was passionate
Very
about,
much,
so.
Yes.
So if anyone has anything, or if you can just send me an email or leave me a note, I can put a matrix together then for the January meeting, and we can approve it. I don't think we need to approve it as a body, but we can just make sure. I don't want anyone to feel stranded on a committee or like they're not capable or comfortable there. Hopefully we'll make them more productive. They're also, I put together goals or kind of, intended projects for each committee at the beginning of the year. If you don't have that document, Chris probably has it in the office, or I can get it for you, just kind of to outline some of the things that, in my mind, the committee should start to address or look at. So, again, the 7, actually 8 committees that we have, 9 now with the facility committee. If there's an area that, has interest or has questions, let me know. Okay. Or anything that we could. Anything else under new business? So the second public comment session, 3 minutes per speaker, if anyone would like to speak. Mr. Rogalski.
Nice, members of council. I'd just like to take this opportunity to kind of let everybody know I had a conversation with Mr. Mason and Mr. Corrigan. Ron is actually entering full retirement come the end of the year, so I'm going to see a transition in phases. You've already seen that transition occur to a certain extent. I'm going to be taking over essentially the water and wastewater side of things with respect to borough operations. I'll be attending the joint operating committee meetings come 2017. And then it isn't my intent to attend this meeting as much as I can. I do have a conflict with it, and that's why you're going to see Vicki a lot more at the borough council meetings, essentially to be a representative and we do work very interchangeably. She works on a lot of things that we do here, so I think it's going to be a combination effort between the two of us. Certainly any issues, concerns you have with the transition or anything else in general, we're always open. Anybody can have my phone number, give me a shout, and we'll make that happen for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
We did approve for the third Thursday for
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Mr. Warren?
Just wanted to know a reason behind the fire tax being set at the rate it was set as opposed to what we had discussed. I was at the meeting with the budget meeting or finance meeting, and what we all discussed. I was not able to attend the last council meeting due to work, and going through meetings and upon meetings, committee meetings for 2 years, many meetings before that, stressing the importance of increasing the contribution, and the rate was set at what it was, and just wanted to know the reasoning behind it.
I think it was a compromise. It was an increase, not to the level that I think was desired, but I think it was what this table thought was a reasonable increase.
And essentially, it was a $2,000 increase for the last, I don't even know how long. I don't know when the last, like I said, explained earlier, and I explained this repeatedly, our last increase from the borough came when the rates, or when the accounting principles were changed for the collection of utilities to cover that, and I don't even remember how long ago that was. And $2,000 probably for the last increase for the last 10 years.
It was a 9% increase.
I'm not going to argue percentages. It's the dollar figure that has been low for so many years. The percentage is obviously going to be out of whack. The percentage isn't going to generate the money that could have been increased slowly over the years that hasn't been done.
You can't hold this table responsible for the previous years.
I'm not, but that's, like I said, I myself have been at this quest probably ever since I became fire chief in 2007. And we have virtually made no headway, zero. And the borough has not contributed anything to our quote-unquote capital reserve fund in the fire company to replace apparatus. And the fund was developed 6 years ago. And essentially Penn Township and Wheatfield Township are buying the fire trucks. And that's what I'm saying is the urgency. And we're staring at an economy growth. The interest rates have already gone up, last week. And they're forecast to continue to go up, so things are going to get more expensive. And just want to reiterate the urgency for our requests.
I'll speak for myself. I get it. I get your urgency and your concern. Globally, the economy may have gone up, but I think locally, a lot of information has been brought forth this year. Our local borough economy has not. We've got 35 or 30%, residents at or below the poverty level, for whatever reason. We've got another 30 or 35% that household income is $35,000 or less. We had, I think, overwhelming response at the November meeting from residents concerned about any tax increase. We did 2 tax increases. We did a general fund tax increase, and we created a new fire tax. I think that is also something that is new. It's a new thing for our taxpayers, for our residents to absorb. It generates a little bit more money, 9%, but $2,000 or so, and it's not zero movement, but certainly it's not the movement that we would like.
And essentially, that raise of what was currently contributed to what the fire tax is less than like $3 a year for a resident.
It depends on the resident, because it's a property tax.
For the average home in the borough, it's probably about $2 a year.
I didn't do math specific to that increase.
And I don't even know if it's that. Point one was $6, so it didn't even go up that much. So it's probably in the $4 range per year. It was the increase.
There was an across-the-board tax increase that we could not avoid despite all of the cost-cutting measures we went over. We were able to work in a small increase, And I think that to ask everybody to absorb that big of a tax increase, despite everything else that we've done in decreasing services to save cost, I think to ask anybody to put in more than that at this point wouldn't be right. And that's where I stand with it. With moving forward, and I was actually the one that made the motion to bring it back down to the 0.48. That being said, that's not to say that in the future, once we have made some headway in improving our infrastructure and we can stabilize our expenses a little bit, for the following year, or even if we have any one-time sources of revenue this year that we can use for it, there's potential there.
And I'm also in favor of looking at picking up their utilities back to the way it was before.
And like I explained earlier with that is an item that the utilities would absorb as a line item for fire company contribution with utilities or however it could be done. But that's no money exchanging hands, that's just no money from us coming back to the borough, which essentially that does increase the amount.
I personally, again, one of 7, disagree with Roger. And I think the utilities being billed and paid back, although it's cumbersome, is cleaner. There's a better, documentation and reference to that. I'm not saying anyone would do this, but if the utilities are paid no matter what the bill, there's not an incentive to close the bay door quite as quickly. There's not an incentive to fix a leaky faucet as opposed to.
Bay door won't have anything to do with it, it's oil heat, but.
Okay. There's probably electric blower.
We've got all LED lights in the firehouse now. I mean, we've done that on our own. We believe me, we don't want to pay out as much. And with that being said, we've done all that. We've done everything we can do with all those measures. So to be frugal about how we spend our money and everything, and this firehouse down here needs replaced. Probably needed replaced 15 years ago, and we're on borrowed time with it. We've had multiple issues with, and like I said, I haven't even got to the point in the committee where we've started discussing replacing the firehouse. We're at the point we're trying to get an apparatus replacement program outlined and just in place for infinity. And then the firehouse project, that's next, and we haven't made it over one hurdle. Basically, when the committee was established, the first couple things, and you were involved in it, that we were discussing this, we were discussing funding formulas, and we were discussing contracts. And we accomplished 0. We have not, in 2 years of discussions, and basically putting it on the laps of the municipalities, I've got nothing back. There's been very little feedback, and outside of the meetings, there's been very little feedback to me. Stuff is being done, not saying it's being done in this municipality, but stuff is being done behind our backs and not being included. So we're trying to be upfront, honest, show everything, open door policy, books open, and it just seems to me that we're the ones that are being excluded. We're not the ones being included in discussions, in anything. And I'm telling you, sitting right here today as a volunteer, it is getting old. And I volunteer my time here tonight. I volunteer my time at 2 or 3 other municipal meetings, Perry County Firemen's Association, let alone the amount of time that's put in at the firehouse. And it just gets old when it's not heard. And when we can't afford police here, you can't afford paid firemen. You can't. There's zero potential here for anybody to afford to pay firefighters. None.
The difference is, as a borough in Pennsylvania, we're required to provide fire protection. We're not required to provide police protection.
I was just using it as an example, that the tax increase, basically the police were let go because of the potential tax increase. And the volunteer firefighters have been, I'm not saying taken advantage of for so long, but it's kind of an expected is kind of an oversight on municipalities. And I'm not saying that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania laws and everything, they need, the antique laws and everything need change for funding, for everything across the board with public safety, period. But the cry has been there from the volunteers in this area to be supported financially, because if it doesn't happen, if we can't function financially, and we go away, then you are forced to provide it. And that burden is solely on you with little to no recourse on what we have already down there.
I agree.
And that should be scary.
It is.
And that is, and to me, in these committee meetings and in talks, there has never been a discussion coming back to me about trying to acquire some of that. And I've blatantly said this in meetings, as far as the fire tax and everything has been concerned, that could be that's part of the issue that we have to offer you, that we have that infrastructure in place to offer up for things. And I've never gotten any feedback on that issue or any inquiries either. So I just want to put it out there, because it's I turned down overtime to be here tonight. Could have made $700. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and I start to ask myself, is it worth it? And
I think my struggle, we've heard your budget and your needs for finances, and we've laid out ours. And we got an outcry from the community that said they did not want to see a tax increase. And we did the best that we could with what's available to us to try and come to some sort of happy medium. I would be remiss to go and put a significant tax increase in to support what you want to do moving forward, you guys to move plans forward. You're saying 17 years down the road. I don't know that we can commit to an increase like that next year, let alone years 10, 11, 12, and whatever.
The way I tried to explain that, I don't know if it came across right, but if we were to accomplish what we originally had in place before it was cut, that figure right there is potentially good for the next 17 years on the fire company's end. Because if we lock up our financing to replace those two pieces of apparatus, and we use the two payments to pay off our current one and lock up that financing to pay for those two $1.3 million worth of fire trucks for the next 15 years after that, that figure is good for that whole time, because the payment won't change. And that's where I was going.
And what I'm saying is, I'm not comfortable committing to an elevated amount to you guys if we aren't going to be able to sustain it.
But if it's a fire tax, you're able to sustain it because it's totally
not
separate.
if property values go into the crapper because everybody moves out of town.
But that's a...
Chief, that has to be passed every year. That doesn't stay in effect just because it was passed now. They have, the tax resolution...
I get that. But it's just, like I said, that's just where I'm coming from. And like I said, it gets old, and I don't know... I just don't know how long I'm going to continue to do it, that's all.
And
if the cries aren't heard, and like I'm saying, if the cries aren't heard, you're potentially on the hook to provide that service on your own. And that's expensive. Very expensive compared to the $10,000 more we're asking for.
And I recognize that the cries have been heard, and we did the best that we could with what we've got to work with. People don't know what, are we going to have increased rates for sewer? Are we going to have increased rates for water? Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen moving forward, and we tried to be as proactive. We didn't cut you guys. We got a little bit more in there, and I'm sorry if we're not meeting your timeline, but we have to balance all of the needs of the borough, not just one component of it.
Might I suggest the 10 grand that you're allocating to the EMS for the first time in a gazillion years? Go to them, considering EMS, you guys had stated a few months ago, is going through a state audit. Is that done? You have 3 council members that are paid by the EMS.
That's not correct.
You're not paid
No, ma'am.
because you're the president of the
Not the
association?
president.
No, ma'am, I'm the president, actually.
Okay, so that's changed. My understanding
I've,
was
He hasn't,
time out, I've never in my lifetime been the president of the EMS company.
that was misinformation to me then. I
I'm
always
sure it was.
thought you were.
There's a lot of misinformation, and one of the required services is also EMS. And even if I wasn't a member of Duncannon EMS, as a citizen, to take an organization and zero them out because of a personality conflict
I'm not
is
saying that. It's
way
just that
wrong.
they haven't been funded in years.
That's right, they've done without, so let them continue to do without, so we can give someone else more.
But are we mandated to give EMS? But we are mandated by borough code to
The
give
borough
fire.
code, if you read the borough code, and I'll gladly
That's
provide you
why
the
I'm
section.
asking.
The borough code states that boroughs are required to provide administrative and financial support for the provision of fire and emergency medical services within the borough.
I've always just heard fire, fire, fire.
Because it
I
didn't
have
change
never
until
heard
2008.
EMS.
It didn't change until 2008. So any old edition of the borough code says only fire. Because at that, for many, many years, most EMS
I'm not
service
trying to
was
pick a
provided by
fight,
fire
I'm
companies.
just, it was something I saw that was allocated, that was never allocated.
It was.
It was
I'm-
allocated, it was zeroed out.
I'm the treasurer of the organization, and I will tell you that without some increase or some change, you're not going to have an ambulance providing service here. Ickenburg went out of business in 2013, no longer provides service. They wait 45 minutes for an ambulance from New Bloomfield. Marysville went out of service in April of 2015. They wait for an ambulance from East Pennsboro Township.
I hear you,
Most of the other agencies in this county aren't far behind. It's not too far off from the fire companies.
but that was a glaring line item that I saw, that
Certainly.
hasn't been in the line items for years.
Yep.
That's why I threw it out there. Because he's screaming for it, and
Well, you've never
You
ever
guys
heard
have
me
it.
want to take money from
No.
any other public safety entity either.
No,
That's
you
not
hadn't.
my,
but I threw it out
it's
there
all,
because it hadn't
it's
been.
all it's all together.
I don't believe, as the chief of the EMS company, that it's a fair comparison between fire and EMS. Fire trucks cost $500,000 to $1 million. Ambulances, we bought an ambulance for $5 grand, because that's what we could afford. We've got an ambulance that's 22 years old sitting out there. We've got an ambulance with 220,000 miles sitting
They're
out there.
both valuable services.
And ambulances can bill for service, but we recover some of that, not all of that. Fire companies generally, I won't say can't, but don't successfully bill for service. Fire company runs, 250 calls?
360.
360 calls. Ambulance service is gonna run over 1,200 this year. We cover about the same area. We cover also Watts Township, New Buffalo, and most of the rest of Weedville Township. But we share the Duncannon Borough, we share Reed Township, and we share Penn Township.
Okay, and I'm pulling back that suggestion. It was just a suggestion, not a war.
Well, but, it's come up before, and the issue was, well, it's a conflict, because, it was determined it wasn't a conflict, that ethically there's nothing, and if you think for 1 minute
As
that
long as
every
you guys
time,
aren't dropping paychecks.
excuse me,
It's not a ethical problem.
Direct financial benefit.
every time that we're looking at the financial situation of this borough, and I'm trying to balance that with anything, when I'm looking at Parks and Rec's budget, can we do without stuff? Could we do without doing the summer program? Yeah, we probably could. Does that benefit everybody in the borough? No, it doesn't. Oh, well, it's only this or it's only that. No, it's something that we're trying to do to offer and better this community. And that's what I feel about the EMS. It's a required service, and we, as a borough, have not done our due diligence to support that required service.
And for the record, 4 of the 7 members of this table are affiliated with the EMS company.
Isn't it 5?
I know there's volunteers.
5.
I'm sorry, 5.
But I don't know how many paid people there are. And paid people does raise an ethical thing, because then you do actually benefit from the donation. Because you're paid out of those funds. That's where in my mind, it's an ethical issue.
Is there,
Because there's paid
there's no,
issues.
is there taxing for EMS also the same as fire tax? Is that a?
There's an amount within a fire tax that can be levied and paid to EMS, I don't know those numbers.
That is not how the budget was compiled.
No, but.
Right, I just had that question. Yeah, I was here for all of it, I just wasn't at the next meeting.
Yeah, the entire fire tax levy was budgeted to go to the fire company.
And if you think that that decision was made behind your back, I apologize.
No,
That was
I'm-
not the intention.
What I'm getting at with that statement was that you knew I wasn't here. I was at work, I mean, I don't know, you don't have to know where I am, but I never received anything. There's no communication back and forth with what was decided, why it was decided, etc. That's kind of what I'm looking for. If the information highway
made the motion
is
public, right?
Yes.
And the budget was published for 30
If
days.
the information highway is open one way, it needs to be open both ways, is what I'm aware of.
And the budget, the proposed budget was not adopted until tonight, and it was advertised for 30 days. It was all on the record, the recordings are out there. If you would have asked, I think any of us would have shared that with you. You're right, we didn't seek you out and say, here's what we're doing. But it was a public meeting, public action, and it was a proposed document that then had to be advertised by law and was not adopted until tonight.
I don't think he was questioning legality either. I think he was just saying that in the future we should consider it maybe. If we're gonna have a situation like this and gonna make a change, we could talk to the fire company about it. I think that part of the statement was all I was asking. Which I don't disagree with, maybe others do. I wish I would have said something to you to say, this is what happened at the last meeting.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We're still in public comment.
I'm good.
Does anyone else have any public comment?
Now,
No, he wants you to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
You have to second it.
Motion by Mr. Williams,
Second.